I have those minutes.
December 22.
and must comply with reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. We have a couple people that are recording and have a camera. With that, roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman, all 5 selectmen are present, as is Town Administrator Mr. Andrews.
Thank you very much. Any announcements?
Under announcements, again, a reminder that the last day to submit petition articles for this year, the annual April town meeting, is Friday, March the 9th, 2012. So if you have any articles that you need to get submitted, please make sure you do so by then. The Helping Paws Have a Heart for Pets campaign is underway. A $5 donation purchases a raffle ticket for $200 gift certificates for Buzzards Bay Tattoo from now until the end of March. Donations are can be made through PayPal or stop by the Helping Paw Hearts for Pets and make a donation to save our pets. We have a spaghetti dinner coming up on March the 3rd to benefit the Mary Jane Pillsbury Scholarship at the Masonic Lodge from 5 to 7 p.m. Tickets are $6 per person. And again, that's Saturday, March the 3rd. The high school, sorry for this, can't help it. The high school is hosting an annual arts fair on March the 30th, and they're seeking artists. So they're going to have their annual arts fair to promote arts awareness on Friday, March the 30th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Members of the community are invited to contribute. For more information, you can contact Amy Dion at 508-291-3510 or Dion, D-I-O-N, at Wareham K12mass.us. That's all I have. Mrs. Winslow? Mr. Schneider? Mrs. Begley? Mr. Cruz?
All set. All set. Thank you.
Citizens participation. I did that one, yeah.
Citizen participation.
Thank you. Claire Smith, Town Moderator. Thank you, Steve, for making that announcement. I just want to add to that any citizen who wishes to do a petition article, there are guides available in the Selectman's office that clearly explains how an article is to be written. It is a complete packet that they can pick up so that they can write their motion, their explanation, and it has the petition on the back that they can collect their signatures. I would just caution that someone doing a petitioned article may want to be sure that they have their warrant article completely the way that they want it before they go out and get signatures, because once they get the signatures, they can't change the wording at all. So if they have any questions, they certainly could feel free to contact me at the Mass Moderator's email address on the town site. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I also wanted to let you know that there is an opening for an associate member on the planning board. So if there's anybody out there that has an interest, if they would also go to the Selectman's office and take out an application, that would be great. We'd like to get another associate on that board. And I just want to share with this board and with the public that, again, this year I'm hosting the Southeastern Mass Moderators here in Wareham next Saturday. I'm really excited about this meeting. We're going to be having Margaret Hurley from the Attorney General's office. Attorney Hurley is the Attorney General's Central Massachusetts Division Chair, and she is also Director of the Attorney General's Municipal Law Unit. It's going to be a really educational opportunity for us to find out what happens to warrant articles after they leave town meeting and they go to the Attorney General's office. So I think it's going to be a very interesting meeting, and given the response that I've had back from all of the moderators in the Southeast region, they're all eagerly anticipating to come here to Wareham and participate in this meeting. So I'm real happy about that. And just one more thing about town meeting, anybody that has, yep. It's only for moderators. Yeah, it's a opportunity for us to get together and share information and learn. It's a great resource, and generally they have not had any in southeastern Massachusetts. It's always been out in the western part of the state. So last year I hosted a small group here, and this year it's almost doubled in capacity. So I think they're very happy to have something closer to home. With relative to town meeting, anybody that has any flyers or handouts, they do need to get approval from the moderator before they bring them to town meeting, and I would appreciate it if they would get them to me at least a week ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire, you want to answer that?
They can send them to the Mass Moderator email address and they'll come to me, or they can leave them in the office and the office will call me and I'll pick them up.
My name is Gerald Barrows, and I'm complaining again, and I'll complain every time I come to this meeting. Nothing is being done about that. I'm on Narrows Road. I know you say it belongs to the state to fix that hole, but I'm getting sick and tired of going by there. Sometimes I forget all about it, and my car hits that thing, and it's going to throw my front end out. A lot of people is doing it, but it's going on deaf ears. It's a safety hazard, and I don't see why the town can't fix it and build a state. I'm getting sick of it, and I'll complain every time I come to this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think that's Mr. Andrews' pocket, so we'll see what he can do about it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Robinson. I'm Oakdale Heights here in Wareham. A couple of meetings ago, there was a person up here during community participation, and she had a question regarding the workshop that the selectmen are going to hold regarding the sewer business. And the question that she had talked about whether or not residents, Wareham residents, we're going to be able to, I don't know if she used the word participate, but we're going to be able to talk or be involved at that workshop, which is going to be held, I think it's the 28th. If I remember correctly, Selectman Snyder and Selectman Holmes seemed to think that, and they gave the impression that it was, yeah, that was fine, that people would be able to talk at that workshop. However, since that time, I've come to understand that I think that that decision, if you want to call it a decision, that decision has been changed, and that the process for that meeting is somewhat different. So I think that we owe it to the public, especially those who were here and those watching it on TV. I think we owe it to them to let them know if it has been changed, and or what is the process going to be regarding that workshop.
Okay, first of all, the meeting is not a public meeting, it's an open meeting. So it pertains to only the sewer. I think the agenda has been printed, but everything pertaining to that meeting is going to be, because we have issues with, or problems with the sewer commission every time that they come on, we're late and we have to put it off. So we're donating one Pacific night just for the sewer. What's going to happen to people that are mentioned to be on it is CDM, and I think Guy Campina has other disciplines coming to explain how we can operate more efficiently and what else we need to do to either lower the rates or make it more efficient. So basically that's what it is. Now, if Mr. Holmes and Mr. Snyder had said people can speak, now they may be referring to if you have a spokesman, but for the general public to get up and speak, I don't think it's going to be that. But anyways, Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think the agenda, Mr. Foster is going to present how we pay for things and talk about the finances. And then Mr. Giudice is to be here. Mr. Campina has several policies that we've had come up in the past couple of months that he's going to be presenting, and we're going to discuss as sewer commissioners. And so, yeah, in those parts, I understand your answer, but the question really is on the last two agenda items, which is Contract 2 and Contract 3. And I think what I said was, I don't recall specifically, but that the participation from the audience is up to the chair of the meeting. But I would tend to think that people would have questions, and we would let them ask the questions. That was my impression. Mr. Giudice will be here to talk about some Contract 3 design, new design stuff. But I thought that the sewer commissioners probably would take questions. I'm not going to say there'd be a debate back and forth with the audience, but people would, I think, should be able to come up and ask questions if they have questions about Contract 2 and 3.
Mr. Snyder?
I would agree with Selectman Holmes. I think from my standpoint, the whole point of having this meeting in a different venue was to allow as many people in those contracts to come and ask those questions and get the questions that they have answered. I think that there has been poor communication from the town or through the sewer commissioners. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to start to rectify that moving forward. Because people do have a right to be fully informed of how this project's going to affect them. And they have the right to ask the questions, I think. So I would absolutely advocate for, allowing a very open question period for those residents.
Okay, then Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with both Mr. Schneider and Mr. Holmes. I think we do need to, have a forum where people can get answers to their question. The information that we put out there may not necessarily answer their questions. In addition, I did ask Mr. Andrews today if we could move the meeting to the middle school auditorium where the acoustics are better so that people can hear what's being said, and WCTV can pick up the meeting so that what's said is recorded. They have the capability to do that there. He was going to discuss that with you, but since we're talking about it, I'd like to see us make this as user-friendly as we can for the folks out there that have questions.
Mr. Begley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I agree. I think that people need the information, and I think that there should be, within reason, an opportunity to ask questions. And I'm wondering, because I know that we've dedicated an entire evening to this workshop, and I know it's been posted, but I'm not sure if that's going to be, I'm just wondering if more people would have the opportunity to attend if it was on a Saturday as opposed to a Tuesday evening. And I just wanted to know how the board would feel about that.
Well, right now, we had it posted for, I think it was the 28th.
Correct. That's a Tuesday evening.
The only thing we need to do now, if the board doesn't agree on having the public participate, we need to do is change the agenda to have an open session instead of just an open meeting. In other words, open to the public. And we could either have it open to the public for the section when we come up to project 1 or 2, or open session for the whole meeting. I mean, public meeting for the whole meeting, either or.
Mr. Chair, I think that that's certainly at your discretion. So I don't know, I mean, do we have to change the whole venue to a public hearing as opposed to still having the workshop, but at the chair's discretion, just permitting, feedback or questions from the citizens? But
Okay.
I'm just wondering if this board would entertain perhaps having it on March 3rd, which I think, if I can see that far away, is the following Saturday, as opposed to a Tuesday evening. I just would like to have as many people as possible be able to attend.
Well, I think this is only the first meeting we're having, because if I'm correct, after this meeting, when we get all the information, we are supposed to have a public meeting with everyone involved in contract 1 and 2. So let's proceed with this one on the 28th, which we already have scheduled. And what we can do, if we're not going to open it to the public, then what we could do is, if they have representatives, instead of 50 people getting up and speaking, if we can have a representative from each area talk on whatever questions they have, and we can limit it. You know, you don't want to say limit it to 5 people, but anyways, so we won't have 50 people all getting up and repeating the same questions over and over again.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
with all due respect, I think that what I hear is 4 selectmen basically agreeing with having the Wareham residents somewhat involved in this meeting. It's the same thing that I heard at the previous meeting that I was talking about. What I also hear is that there seems to be some problem with that. I mean, in all due respect, just as a matter of clarity, as a matter of being up front, I think that it's important that even if people don't speak, and I don't think 50 people are going to speak, but in terms of the process and getting people to understand that the process is open and that they're invited, I think that people need to come up and speak. And I think that the majority of the selectmen there think the same way. I don't think there'll be 50 people. I don't think it'll be unruly. I think that if the process changes from the way it was originally proposed, that may prove to be have things unruly, because I don't think people are going to understand. Once you make a decision, we can't keep, see, this is one of the problems. We can't keep going back, undoing something that was done because some individual or some individuals don't agree with it. If they didn't agree with it, they should have said it at that time and then let it be. But here we go again. A decision was made, now it's going to be undone. It's not fair.
A decision pertaining to what, Mr. Roberts?
About the meeting we're talking about, is a decision about people being able to participate in the meeting. It was somewhat, excuse me, it was somewhat of a done deal when that meeting ended, that people were going to be able to attend, people were going to be able to participate to some extent. Now, after listening to what's happening now, it's different.
Well, it isn't different. What I did, Mr. Roberts, is explain to you, this is an open meeting, not a public meeting. I was just giving you clarification between the open and the public. It isn't going to be a public. So the board said the public can talk. Now, saying myself, in other words, if the public's there, if there's 100 people, we're not going to have 100 people speaking.
Right.
So the board said the public is invited to speak. So we will do that, and we probably will limit it to the amount. Mrs. Begley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Robinson, I don't think that anybody's, I think that this board wants the public to attend.
Right.
We also are encouraging questions or probably points of clarification from the people that attend. However, it's different from a public hearing. There are many public hearings that were held on each one of these projects. The workshop is for this board of sewer commissioners to be able to see what's there and be able to get some work done, hence the name, the workshop. But we're not discouraging people from participating, but this is not just for public information, it's also to get some work done.
No, I understand that. I understand. All I was referring to was what took place previously. That's my whole contention. What took place previously, we can't just keep going back and undoing things that were done. And I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. Citizen participation?
Hello, everybody. My name is Emmett Johar, 3150 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham. And you guys already know the troublemaker with me. The reason I'm here today is because of Mark's contract extension. Folks, I'm a current business owner. My family owns businesses in town. I'm currently attending BU graduate school. I can tell you this, that there are some fundamental decisions that have to be made. And I hope that we can make a decision on his contract extension as opposed to turning it into more of a political football. Just a couple of reasons why you guys do need to consider it, consider his contract extension. One is, for the past 5 years, every time I picked up the newspaper in this town, there seems to be always some sort of turnover. Every time in a corporation, when you bring in somebody new, there's training and resources that are devoted to bringing somebody up to speed. And in the past 5 years, I've seen a whole bunch of people go out that door. I would hate to see that here happening to Mark at this time, especially when things are going in the right direction. And since the previous strategy hasn't worked for us for Wareham, I think it's time to change course and let's make a decision not to let this procrastinate any further. Reason number two is, in the last 5 years, there's been a bunch of lost opportunities. Just to name a few, companies like Amazon or Santander, they've relocated in the state. Wareham was never even considered as part of the bidding or home for any one of their headquarters or even an office, satellite office for that matter. Plimpton, not too far away from here, just landed Cisco Foods. So that's a pretty big deal for them, especially for a little town like that. That means a lot. And just recently I saw another statistic in the South Shore Business Journal where for every one business we create in Wareham, there's 10 businesses that are being created across the town, across the road in Plymouth. And that's a pretty startling statistics. What it means for us, essentially, is lost revenues for the town. And every single time, again, I come here, I hear discontent amongst a lot of people here about sewer and plenty of other issues. Well, you know what? If we had a lot of those opportunities and if we can capture some of them in the future, we can absolutely add to our tax revenue base, corporate tax revenue base, as well as our individual employment base. Lastly, Mark just equals stability, as well as, so for any business to come into town, they want stable environment. And I don't think we should let this go any further. I think it's time to make a decision so that at least we can start pursuing some of those other opportunities that are out there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I do want to mention something. Last week, this microphone.
Well, we have to talk right up to it. You got to be they got a note here. 6 inches, 6 inches away.
Some of the ones on the desk, when I was out watching on TV, because I couldn't make it, and a lot of the things that were, important to discuss, couldn't understand. I just thought maybe you could have the sound system checked for your benefit.
Well, they just left us a note here to be 6 inches away, and I think they're turning up the mic because my wife tells me the same thing when I go home. She can't hear a thing. So.
I don't think Larry needs a mic, by the way.
But anyway, thank you very much. Citizen participation? If not, Mr. Clerk.
Administrator's contract. Whose item is this?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion to table this item at this time.
Second.
Motion table. Question. Second by Mr. Holmes. Here are no questions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Mr. Haney? There's no special time. Right. Oh my God. You're barely not going to read through all that, are you?
Actually, if you don't treat me nice, I will. Thank you all for having me this early in the night, and I'll try to do my best to help the last person on the agenda get out at a reasonable time. But the one thing that I wanted to start with is just kind of a housekeeping item having to do with the minutes of the workshop meeting that was held in January 14th. And it's just something that I should have picked up on the draft, and I didn't. But the very title of this states that the minutes of the workshop meeting with the Board of Selectmen and Westfield Study Committee. the study committee did not post the meeting. There wasn't a quorum there. There were some people who were kind enough to go because they could. But in light of all the open meeting law things that go on around here, I'd just like to go on the record that it was not a meeting of the Westfield Study Committee in case that issue ever comes up again.
And Mr. Chairman, we got that information to Janet, and she was making those corrections because it was not a combined meeting. Okay. The next thing that I'd like to do is just distribute to the board what I'll call our last draft, because we're only waiting for two things after this, and then just not read through it, but just go over a couple of highlights in this, if I could. Okay. Not reading through everything here, but just pointing you to some things that we think are important. You'll notice in the middle of the first page, and all I gave you, by the way, are pages that have been changed. So the red, you don't have any of the pages that we haven't changed, because I just didn't print them all. But in the middle of the first page, we've identified phase one as a number of units to be determined by the developer. I think it's easier for the developer to make a determination as to what makes sense for that particular developer. We wouldn't want somebody to come in and say, 50 to 60 units is what they wanted. If they only wanted 75, I'd bid on it. Or if they only would take 45, I would bid on it. So if we leave it open, I think that it makes more sense. And the committee did as well. The next page is what we put in as, we're calling it an executive summary. But basically it's 3 paragraphs that in very nice language encourages participation. It asks for people to respond to this. It tries to set the tone that we're willing to talk about Westfield and talk about what makes sense for the community and the developer, and that there really isn't anything in the pages to follow that's non-negotiable, except for the town meeting article. Okay. Next page, we just changed the date from September 1st, 2011 to, and we just picked April 6th, 2012. We can pick any day, but that's just seemed to make sense. The next item on what's identified as page 5 talks about water and sewer and the clarification that we need for funding assistance, and also for the sewer commissioners down below in the second paragraph. What we've said is, or the third paragraph rather, what we've said is the Wareham sewer commissioners have determined that the town has adequate sewer capacity to support similar projects. What we need is the sewer commissioners to certify that, so because we're either going to have the word has determined or has determined that it doesn't fit. Okay, and in particular, the committee has some information that Mr. Campina provided us about sewer capacity at the plant, but the Sanborn pump station has never been addressed. And so if you could, as sewer commissioners, if you could see your way clear to essentially signing off on Mr. Campina's previous document, as well as assuring the developer that Sanborn either will absorb this development or it will not. So that what we end up doing is making a
positive statement. It either is this way or it is not this way. Okay? And funding assistance, we've talked about funding assistance several different ways, and we talked about it from the perspective of petitioning community preservation for money to be used for the sewer. The committee came to the realization or the consensus that we could petition community preservation for some money between $200,000 and $500,000, but that the developer could determine if it was in the sewer, if it was in the water, if it was in the buildings. You know, we'd make that variable. We wouldn't try to earmark it for one thing or another. Again, we're trying to instill the spirit of openness for the developers. The next item that I think is worthy of discussion is on page 10 at the bottom. It's actually item 7. And where we say needs clarification, this particular item is stating that the Board of Selectmen will submit an article for fall town meeting to potentially encumber funds for CPC from $200,000 to $500,000. That language was added to the original proposal. There's a question amongst the committee members as to whether the Board of Selectmen can actually do this, and so I just suggest that, you know, maybe town council could raise or, you know, weigh in on that question or not. Some people think it has to be the developer that asks town meeting. Other people think that the Board of Selectmen can do it. The reality is I don't think we really know. Okay. I'll refer you back a couple of pages to page 8 in particular, and also so that you understand, this is version 6.1. It's identified as version 6.1. It has the language in T, section T, that follows on to page 9. It has the language of defining rehabilitation of the baseball fields as the original language that was in the RFP that we started with, and that we debated last time around with the selectmen, and I think it was 2-2 as to whether the language should change or the language shouldn't change. But in this version 6.1, this is the language that failed in the committee vote. We debated this section for a lengthy period of time, and it's the first time we've had a vigorous, lengthy debate that resulted in a split vote. And so the committee authorized me to present 2 drafts to the selectmen. This first one is version 6.1. It has the language originally done and or originally discussed. And I will just distribute 2 more things. Okay, this the next document that I presented to you is titled version 6.2, and you'll notice on version 6.2 the only things that have changed are that section T on page 8 is completely crossed out, and what's put in there is a short sentence that says the rehabilitation shall be defined as meeting the standards of the National Babe Ruth and National Little League organizations. Okay, and that's the language that actually passed the committee vote by a 3-2 margin. What I provided to you in additional language, or the additional document, is information that we didn't have at the time that the committee met, and it is actually from the rule book. High school baseball fields are actually, the Babe Ruth field is actually a high school baseball field. And so this is the rule book for high school baseball fields. The Little League rules are not available unless you are actually a member of Little League, and so nobody on the committee is, I don't believe. But anyway, Section 2 here is essentially what you're, if you vote for the language that was approved by the committee, you're voting for these specifications, okay? And what these specifications reflect is the end result of the project. And their general specifications, we had this debate vigorously at our meeting, their general specifications, they talk about things like the field shall be a diamond shape, it'll be at 90-degree angles, there'll be 90 feet between home plate and first base and so forth. It does not state in the general overall rules anything to do with local conditions, which is what version 6.1 does. It tries to establish local conditions and then end up with this, as opposed to starting with this and then trying to define local conditions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr. Begler.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Haney.
Hi.
I attended that meeting.
You did.
And the language that was changed, you're continuing the debate, and you were in the two. You were in favor of leaving the original language in.
I was.
Mm-hmm. And the recommendation for the change in the language was by one of your members that happens to, I think this is part of his profession. Is that correct?
It may be. Right.
He did say that in the meeting, that this is what he does. And he said that if, with the two baseball fields, if we had the language that said shall be defined as meeting the standards of the National Babe Ruth, one field, and then the other field, the National Little League organizations, that should suffice. And this RFP that's going out isn't the final contract with any developer that we hire. So I just want to clarify that, and I understand you're passionate about this, but I also just want to be clear that, to be fair with the debate that occurred during that meeting, the vote was 3-2 in favor of the second version that you've presented to this board.
I said that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we also, at that time, we also agreed that this is the selectmen's RFP. The selectmen should be provided with the information, and that the selectmen can take their vote, end up 3-2 if you do. But we would be prepared to deliver to you in final fashion either version 1 or version 2. But it's your call at this point.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Winslow.
through you, Mr. Heaney, are you looking for us to give you direction on this evening?
That would be ideal, but it's not necessary until such time as you certify the sewer issue, because quite frankly, all we've got to do is pick 1 or 2 and insert the sewer language, and we're done. We don't need another meeting to do that. The committee has authorized me already to insert whatever sewer language you folks provide.
So on the meeting of the 28th, we'll put that on the agenda to come back with information about the springborn pump station. I think we should have something after that. Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, I was just going to so Bill, when you started, you said you needed 2 points of clarification. Ball field was one, and the sewer, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
There was a third point. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, CPC, you're right. I'm sorry, somebody said that. There were 3 points, yeah.
Because I wrote down town council.
Town council for the CPC. Yeah,
The ball field language.
yep,
And the sewer, so I got 3.
that's it.
That was it.
That's it. And we're ready to go.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay?
From the board?
Mr. Chairman, just a
Mr.
quick
Snyder.
question through you to Mr. Heaney. Mr. Heaney, what if we were to put in the minimal language for the baseball fields, but in the preferences for the selection of a developer, if we gave a preference to someone that would come closer to the standard that you have suggested for the ball fields, so that there's room for them to come anywhere in between?
I don't mean to give the impression that these are two different things. They're not. Version 1 and version 2 get you to the same end. It's only a question of who decides and how they decide to get you to the same end. What version 1 does is it says, essentially, okay, with the exception of the grass area, all of the dirt areas and so forth, take them out to a level of 4 inches and then refill them with other materials and the like, okay? And bring it back to the standard that we're supposed to have, which is version 2. And what it does is it tells them how to do this stuff, as opposed to handing them the final product and letting them determine what the best way to do it is. Now, we used an analogy in our committee discussion that I'll try to use here, and it has to do with renovating your kitchen. And if you renovate your kitchen and you move the sink from one wall to another, the piping is still in the first wall. And if you tell the developer, I want you to take the pipes, I want you to go down the wall, under the floor, and back up where the new sink is so that water comes out of the pipe into my sink, that's version 1. The goal is to get water out of the pipe into the sink. If you leave it up to the developer to decide and just say, all I want is the sink moved and water to come into my sink, he could, if he chose, run a garden hose from the first location across the floor and into the sink, and he's met your goal, because all you wanted was water to come out of the sink. And so it's a question of, when do you have the discussion about the specifics of how you do it? Okay? And if you start at the end, it's hard to work backwards. If you start at the beginning, it might be easier to get to the end. Nobody's saying, I'm certainly not saying, you got to have it all of what's in version 1. But if you don't want to bring it down 4 inches and maybe you want to bring it down 2, well, maybe that'll work. But let's start there rather than saying, we're not doing anything. All we're going to do is measure from home plate to first base, and if you got 90 feet, we're done.
Well, and I guess, Mr. Heaney, that's kind of why I'm saying if we put that as a preference as far as the selection of a developer, that's one. In other words, an RFP would go out that would basically say that a developer would be given preference who would meet the standard that you're recommending versus just the language in version 6.2. So there's that, you could have RFPs or proposals come in that would be a range in between there. And to me, that would be an acceptable sort of compromise so that exactly, Mr. Holmes, so that we would have the range in between there. So we could still end up with what you're looking to get, but there's only one way to find out.
There is, and that's to choose one or some combination or whatever, and you know, we'll do whatever you want.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, so if I'm hearing Mr. Schneider correctly, the minimum that we would accept for the fields would be the standards for the Babe Ruth and the Little Leagues. However, we could encourage developers to give us something better. And if it's an RFP that's going to be graded on what we're getting, then it would be advantageous to a developer to exceed that expectation. Am I correct in that, Mr. Heaney?
True.
So I would suggest that we do as Mr. Schneider's saying, and we set that as the minimum acceptable standard and try to encourage developers to meet and exceed that. Because that's what you're getting at, right?
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Mr. Holmes?
Sorry about that. My apologies. It was quick. So, under T, the language would look something to the effect of the baseball field rehabilitation at a minimum would meet the standards of the National Babe Ruth and National Little League organizations. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Mrs. Winslow's comments of grading, would that be included or not? Would you include something like that? Or
That would be, we have preferential selection criteria within the RFP, so that would be added in that language. In other words,
that works. That works.
In that language or right where it is? In other words, would have, do I understand correctly that we may have literally the combination of both, where you'd state the minimum standards are whatever that sentence is that's printed there, but the town would prefer, and then let the others rip. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm actually looking for a specific section in the RFP.
It's on page 8.
Mr. Chair.
So if I missed that, Mike, were you suggesting both? You put in the minimum of the Babe Ruth, and then as like a U, you put in the, or a TA, you put in the
No.
the original?
Mr.
Is
No.
that what he said?
While Mr. Schneider's looking, the minimum standard would be the Babe Ruth and the Little League fields. However, we want to encourage a developer to exceed that expectation and be clear that this is an important part of the grading process.
Got it. Okay.
And we can leave that up to the Westfield Study Committee to...
We can find language that would do that.
I like that. Repeat that last part about encouraging, if you wouldn't mind.
We're encouraging them to exceed those minimum standards. And Mr. Schneider has a spot that he's looking for right now where...
If you're looking for the preferential language, I didn't give that to you because we never changed it.
That's exactly what I'm looking
Yeah,
for.
no, I apologize for that.
That's where I would suggest that,
Right.
that the language for the I guess version 6.1 would go, so that a developer would be given preference is for the project the closer he got to that standard. So I think it's under evaluation criteria in the other sections.
It's towards the end.
Mr. Chair, evaluation criteria is on the thicker document on page 50, the last page, evaluation criteria. Is that where you would put it?
That's the beginning of it. It goes well.
I know,
well on
so,
from
but
that,
that's
yeah.
where you would put it, is under that section?
Yep. If that's, I mean, we'll put it anywhere if that's what the board wants.
But the version, Mr. Chair, but the version .2, the field, right, those would be laid out under item T, replacing what's there now.
Yeah,
Or would you just say the minimum specs and then they have to go look it up?
yeah, that's what we'd prefer to do.
No specs, just the statement.
Right.
Okay.
Any
That
other
works
questions?
for
Mr. Heaney?
Do I have another
No.
question?
Do you have anything else?
I'm done.
So we just need the two pieces.
Now we're down to two.
You're comfortable with that guidance, now you can take back right, and then we need two pieces. We need to ask Mr. Bowen the question about who should submit a money article,
Mhm.
and Mr. Campiner, he's here, I'm not going to put him on the spot, but by next Tuesday, he's going to give us a definite answer on that. When's your next meeting, Mr. Heaney?
We don't have one scheduled. Actually, the committee was kind enough to authorize me to put whatever language you come back with into the document and just distribute it to the committee when I distribute it to you.
So basically,
We're done.
The committee's really done. With
Yeah.
those 2 points, Mr. Campini's getting back to us.
Yep.
We'll get the answer back from Mr. Bowen, so if you could put this language, finalize it as soon as you get it to us.
Yeah,
We insert those 2 answers, give it to Mr. Andrews, it's out the door.
No, that's not what I was thinking. What I was thinking is you'd tell me the language, I'd put it in,
Okay.
and wrap it up and deliver it to Mr. Andrews, who would have to take the section at the back end where it defines walkthrough dates and bid response dates and stuff like that, and change the dates, and then we're off and
That's
running.
what I meant by giving it to Mr. Andrews and getting it
He
out
gets
the
it at
door.
the end, I get it first.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, so Mr. Andrews would send it to the board just in case there's any kind of input before it went out the door, correct? Thank you.
So you'll be hearing from us after the 28th, once we get the information.
Whenever you want. I'm just
Okay.
sitting back waiting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the red line version. Very helpful.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Heaney.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, that's on. We don't see any bills. We have the January 17th minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? It was.
On the 17th, I don't know if you have any changes, but there's one change to be made. I talked to Janet today, and I think she's going to redo it.
The correct copy is in the folder. It was number 12, adjournment. Selectman Winslow moved to adjourn. Selectman Holmes seconded. Vote 3-2-0. Selectman Begley and Schneider opposed. And in the folder, I don't know if she meant that folder. Let me go look at it. Oh, in the folder, Chairman Cruz moved to adjourn. Selectman Holmes seconded.
I think we're going to do it with if that's all we have, is that she can go ahead and approve it with the change, if she already has it in your folder, Mr. Holmes?
Just checking to see what changes she made in the folder, she says. So I'm assuming she means this folder that we signed off. Yeah, that's what she said, yeah. Selectman Winslow moved to adjourn because the chairman can't make that motion. So the corrected version of that statement is adjournment. Selectman Winslow moved to adjourn. Selectman Holmes seconded. Vote 3-2-0. Selectman Begley and Schneider were opposed.
Okay, any other questions on January 17th?
And the version that she handed out, the version that was in your packets from Friday, is the wrong version. So I'd make a motion to accept the version that's in our folder, correcting item 12, adjournment.
Motion made by Steve. Seconded by Ellen. Question? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Okay, February 7th was put on there by accident. They'll be there next week. Received an email this afternoon on that one, just to remind you, blah, 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 blah. No, that's somebody else. Okay, next up we have a few interviews. The first one, in order of appearance on the agenda, is the interview for the appointment to Board of Health. And that is for Amy, I'm going to say this wrong, so you can correct me. Weingent? Weingent?
Weingent.
Weingent?
Dr. Weingent.
Dr. Weingent?
Vigant. Vigant.
Are you here?
She's here.
Oh, come right on up.
Vigant.
There you go.
German.
Say it one more. Well, why don't you sit in that chair to make sure the mic works? And you have to talk like right into the... And if you wouldn't mind correcting me now.
Vigant.
Vigant.
It's German.
Better write that
Introduce
down.
yourself.
I'm Amy Vigant. I'm a local internist, and I'm applying for
Closer to the... You gotta almost touch your lips right to the phone.
Is that better?
Yeah, real good. Thank you.
Okay. If you would explain your interest in serving on the Board of Health, please.
I'm a local physician who am interested in serving on the Board of Health. Hopefully can offer some of my expertise.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Begley?
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Vigant.
That's pretty good.
Thanks. German background. I was there when you were interviewed by the Board of Health.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have a question, because I know that you currently have a practice here in Wareham, and the Board of Health meets on the first and third Wednesdays, but at 4 p.m. Is that going to be an issue for you?
4 I can make, 5 is easier, and I had spoken to some of the board members, and they said they might be able to put it at a different time.
To change the time of the
Right.
meetings?
5 would be really great.
Okay, so 5 you could definitely make, and 4
Yes.
is questionable.
4, right. 4 I could squeeze, but 5 would be much easier. So,
Okay. Thank you very much. I know that they mentioned it at the Board of Health that you've got quite a strong family legacy on the Board of Health. And I appreciate your interest. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mr. Holmes?
Good evening, doctor. What kind of doctor are you?
I'm an internist, adult physician.
And you worked at Toby, I see? Is this... are you still at Toby?
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh, you work for South Coast? Or?
No, I have my own office. And
Oh,
I
you do?
sometimes see my patients at Toby and some of the local nursing homes. And
Well, thank you very much for volunteering your time. That's all I just want to know. Okay.
Mr. Snyder?
How long have you been a physician?
over 20 years anyway.
You don't want to
I
give away.
graduated-
You don't want to give away any secrets.
Graduated in '85 from medical school.
And you did your Tufts Medical?
Tufts Medical School. An internship and residency at St. Elizabeth's in Boston, which is a Tufts
Yep.
hospital.
Very familiar with it. Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's wonderful to see you apply for this position. But you know the question I have to ask everybody. Are you a United States resident and capable of voting?
Yes.
Thank you. Citizen. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank you very much for applying, and I'm glad you did because I'm a strong supporter. All my life, I know you're related to the Gleasons, and all my life we've been having the Gleason on the board. And I'm glad you applied, and I hope you make it. Any other questions?
Just one more question, and I can't remember if it was asked at the Board of Health meeting, Doctor. Are you a registered voter and a full-time resident in Wareham?
I am.
I remembered somebody asked, but I couldn't remember the answer. I remember it was at the Board of Health. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Council on Aging Board of Directors, Lane Burrows. Mr. Burrows, are you here?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burrows, good evening. If you wouldn't mind, you got to get real close to Lynn, as you know. If you would introduce yourself and explain your interest on the Council on Aging, please.
Thank you. Lynn Burrows. I live on Main Street in Wareham. I have been an associate member on the Council on Aging since, I had an interest in Council on Aging and have been actively going to meetings since a year ago, August or September, and have been, as you know, it's this board that appointed me last summer as an associate member. A full-time membership has come up. I am interested in that position. I have some ideas of focus that I'd like to share with you. Things that I would bring to the board are things that I would like to see, not that other people who aren't already there haven't necessarily have the same concerns. For a year now, the board has been without an actual secretary to take our notes and stuff. It's been a take-turn thing. There's been no one interested in that position, and I'm the only one who has showed that interest, only as an associate member. I couldn't do that. I would like to see, by the time that summer begins, our COA director position full-time restored. I'd like to see more programs at the Council on Aging, although there seems to be something going on at several points over the course of the day. There's really only like one thing at a time. You know, there's not a diversity. And I know there's an interest, so I'd like to place part of my focus on that. The food pantry. I think we need a volunteer manager to oversee expansion of hours and just the general running of the food pantry. Right now, the only hours that it's open is Tuesday, 1 to 3. I know that some people have stepped up who are willing, but for whatever reason it hasn't materialized, and I'd like to see that start ASAP. I'd like to see surveys go out for the food pantry clients, find out a little more of what their personal needs are, not necessarily just with food, but all of their needs, whether it's transportation or heating or medical or anything like that. And, you know, with the food pantry, I want to say that it outgrew the shelves before it even opened. It's really amazing. I'd like to see some restored COA working relationships that will benefit the elders in town. And I'd like to take part in encouraging Westfield to move forward and to help meet the needs of seniors in Wareham and to advocate them. So I appreciate your consideration tonight, people.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Begley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Lynn, you've been an associate member for,
I think it was August.
it's like 18 months or it's more than 12, right?
No.
More
When
than
I
a year?
initially came on board, I initially applied for a full-time membership because we had 11 full-time memberships at the time. We had the town meeting vote, so then we waited for the Attorney General's decision to come back.
Oh, yeah.
So I remained in limbo during that time. And then I think it must have been September, I think, when I was finally appointed.
As associate.
Uh-huh.
And you've been kind of acting as clerk for many of the meetings?
No, I haven't been. I had a while ago, but it was determined that I couldn't do that.
As an associate?
Yeah, as an associate.
But you've been attending?
And before that, I wasn't even an associate.
Right. But you've been attending meetings?
Yes.
Fairly regularly?
A year and a half now.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes?
I don't have a question, Lynn, and I do apologize for dragging you there one more time, and the reason I did it is because there are two members here who have not interviewed you officially, and so I wanted to make sure that you were interviewed by the full board, this board.
No,
Because I think you've been interviewed by two boards already.
Well, I
in the
have,
past.
but I'm glad to be able to kind of update you on my resume, and now that I've been there for a year and a half, I have some pretty focused objectives.
I just want to explain why I asked Janet to ask you to come back again.
Okay.
And I do apologize for that.
Mr. Snyder?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mrs. Burrows. Lynn, you have a lot of experience listed on your application with elders. Is there anything else that you didn't list on your application that you think is noteworthy as far as your experience working with seniors?
I do not have my application in front of me. However, I had several years' experience as an EMT in the Boston area, bringing seniors to and from the hospital, to and from nursing homes, and treatments and stuff like that. Yeah, so treating them medically, and that opened my eyes to the needs of nursing homes, not even just on the local level, just everywhere.
Okay. And just what are your thoughts on independent living and trying to advocate for independent living and senior housing?
Mike.
It's on? You can't hear me?
People need to be on their own as long as they're able to be. I've seen, some seniors go through the kind of heartbreaking adjustment of transitioning into long-term care facilities. And life completely changes at that point. And as a matter of fact, as you make me think of that, that would be something worth looking into, is somehow getting more involved with seniors in local nursing homes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mrs. Burrows, you've done something different with your hair. It looks lovely. I noticed it as soon as you walked in.
That happens as you turn the corner to 50, Kara.
That's not what I was getting at.
Yeah,
It really does.
something.
It looks, it's very stunning. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
The only question that I have, and it's not the citizen question, is you are running for the school committee, correct?
Right.
And if you're on the school committee, are you able to continue service on the COA?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's no restrictions like there is for us. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If none,
Thank you very much.
thank you for applying again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Mr. Rocha? Louis Rocha? Good evening. If you could come up and speak, you got to get really close. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and
My name is
explaining your interest.
My name is Lou Rocha. I live on Main Street in Wareham. Been a resident of Wareham for about 22 years. The first half of that or so, I was a part-time resident. And when I retired for my career, we made this our permanent home. I became familiar with the Council on Aging a couple of years ago when my wife attended the daycare center there. And I was quite impressed on the good things they were doing there. And they were very accommodating. As her disease got worse, they allowed me to cut back to a couple of half days a week. And since then, I no longer have her, but because of the good work I saw there, I thought I'd like to pay back a little bit. And, I have volunteered and am doing Meals on Wheels, and I thought I could go a bit further by serving on the board of the Council on Aging. And that's where I applied.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Begley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my condolences, Mr.
Thank
Rocha.
you. Thank you.
I too delivered some Meals on Wheels, and those people over there are absolutely terrific, very hardworking. So you've applied for the full membership?
Yes, that was the intent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you have? Would you be adverse to an associate membership? Should that occur?
No, if there's an opening, I would take either one. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you had the opportunity to attend any meetings?
I went to one meeting just to meet some of the folks on the board. I did go to their last meeting as a visitor. They were kind enough to have me.
But you've not attended regularly or
No,
had
I
that
haven't.
opportunity?
No, I haven't.
But it sounds like you're very familiar with the program, as your wife was a recipient of some of the services.
Yes.
And it's wonderful that you've chosen to give back to the community by delivering Meals on Wheels. And
I'd like to give back, yeah. They were very good to her, and it was quite a respite for me to be able to get some errands done while she was
yeah, you knew she was well taken care of,
yes, she
in
was.
good hands.
Yeah, they were great to her. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Holmes?
I really just want to say thank you for applying, and I really don't have any questions at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Roach, I'd like to also thank you for applying.
Welcome.
And it's nice to see someone like yourself here who's familiar with the COA. And I'm just curious, if you were to look at the COA now, what are the things that we may not be providing right now that you'd like to see coming forward in the future?
I did have an idea that I ran by a couple of the members, and I've sort of since I've been doing Meals on Wheels, I can see how just some of the simple things that we take for granted can be a real challenge for older people. Changing a ceiling light bulb, for example. And so I thought there would be a real need there to be helpful for some folks to sort of be on call to handle simple things like that. My understanding is one of the committees on the Council on Aging is working with local contractors to give discounts, things of that nature. But I also think a lot of people, like myself, who have the time, would just love to help out in the simple tasks that in some cases are very challenging. And I've seen a lot of that now that I've been in a couple of the homes delivering meals. So that's one of the areas I'd like to talk to the other members about, to see if something like that is feasible.
Thank you. Changing a light bulb is a great example. But it really
Yeah,
is.
you have to get up on a chair.
Right.
And for some of the folks that I've met delivering meals, that would be quite dangerous in some cases.
Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening.
Good evening.
The only question I have is, are you a United States citizen?
I am, yes.
Thank you. And thank you for applying.
You're quite welcome.
I want to thank you for applying and for the work you're doing with Meals on Wheels. There aren't any other questions? Mr. Holmes?
Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Is Mr. O'Rourke here? Teddy? Mr. O'Rourke. Paging the hallway for Mr. O'Rourke. No? Jamie, is anybody out there named Mr. O'Rourke? No? Thank you. Is Allison Wade here? Come right on up. Nothing to fear. Just sit right in that chair there and talk right up close. Introduce yourself, please, and tell us what your interest is in serving on the Wareham Recycling Committee. And before you start, did you hear there was an opening by watching this meeting about 4 weeks ago?
I'm sorry, what?
No. Okay. Well, only because we had the recycling committee in, if you all remember.
No,
and
Mr.
they were
Holmes.
announcing.
I'm sure she's not watching.
Yeah,
So I was hoping
we're not considered cool
I was hoping maybe
TV.
this came from that meeting. Go ahead, Ms. Wade.
Okay, I'm Allison Wade, and I'm interested in joining the recycling committee because I think recycling is really important, and I'm really interested about what the community is doing to encourage recycling for everyone to do it.
Mr. Begley?
I can't even tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you're sitting there, willing to volunteer for this committee. How did you learn of an opening on the recycling committee? Is it something they post at school?
Yep, I am in the Junior Honor Society, and the woman who runs it, Miss Oman, she told me about it, and so I heard about that, and I was really interested, so I decided to join.
Great. Now, do you have, as a member of the National Honor Society or for any of your school, it certainly looks great on a college application, but do you have to perform any kind of community service?
Yes, I do. For Junior Honor Society, I have to do 3 hours a month, and soon I'm going to be in the National Honor Society, I think, since I'm a junior now, and for that we have to do 4 hours a month.
So this would, something like this would fulfill your requirement?
Yes, it would.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Holmes?
No, I don't have any questions. You seem very interested in the. Did you say you were in the National Honor Society, Junior?
Junior National Honor Society.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
I don't have any questions either, but I do want to tell you that I think it's great that you've stepped up and you're absolutely setting a great example for your peers, and thank you very much.
Mrs. Winslow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Miss Wade.
Hi.
I got to meet you last week, so I don't have anything other than my standard question. Are you a United States citizen?
Yes.
Thank you. And good work. Keep up the good work. It's great to see young folks such as yourself stepping up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for volunteering. I'm glad you did. We need more young people to volunteer, so you're making a step forward. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See, that wasn't too difficult, was it?
Thanks.
Next we have Mr. Savageau. Bruce? Sick? Ill? Okay. Reported illness. Okay, let me go back to the beginning here. We will. Yeah. All right, those are our that concludes our interviews. Let's see what we can get done here. Oh, I meant to ask. Was interviewed. Okay, we'll start at the top. Make sure I have my dates. I'd make a motion that we appoint Dr. Amy Vigant to the Board of Health for a term to expire June 30th, 2012. This is to fill the remaining portion of Mrs. Irish's seat.
Second.
For discussion?
Yeah, wait up. Can
I
finish
don't
first?
oppose the...
Okay, hold it. Excuse me.
Mhm.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Questions?
I don't oppose this appointment at all, but my question is, if Dr. Vigant can't attend and the Board of Health has expressed the possibility of changing their times, the meetings are only from 4 to 6 generally, so I would like this board to contact the Board of Health and make sure that that's a possibility so that she can be a full participant.
Okay, times and times of the board are set by the board.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other questions? Mr. Winslow?
Well, Mr. Chair, I wanted to point out two things, and the first is I believe she said that she can make 4. It's just a little tight for her scheduling-wise. And secondly, this appointment is only for March, April, May, June, for 4 months. So if it's problematic, then obviously she's not going to seek a reappointment, or we have the ability to not reappoint at the end of June.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
On the Council on Aging, I would make a motion. One second. I would make a motion to appoint Lynn Burrows to the Council on Aging for a term to expire 6/30/2014. And this is to replace the vacancy by Pastor Eubanks.
Motion made by Steve.
Second.
Second by Mike. Question?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Yes, thank you. We actually have 2 letters from the Council on Aging, one from the former chairperson and one from the current chairperson. Has the board of the Council on Aging board given us, because one recommends one candidate and the other recommends the other, so I'm slightly confused as to what the Council on Aging Board of Directors wants.
Right, well, I'm just going to remind you, it's up to the board to make the selection, and they're recommending both people, so it's up to us.
I was, Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
if I could respond. I was, as the liaison to that board, I was there the night they took that vote. Now, I believe they've had other people after that, but Mrs. Burrows was recommended on both letters. I think Mr. Lou Rocha was recommended as well. In my opinion, Mrs. Burrows is the associate member, and I do believe that associate members should be moved up. So, we did get supporting letters for Mrs. Burrows, I think, from both chairmen.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
At this time, I'd make a motion to appoint Mr. Lou Rocha to an associate member on the Board of Council on Aging Board for a term to expire June 30th, 30th, 2012.
Second.
Second.
What second was?
Mrs. Begley.
Motion by Steve, second by Mr. Bailey. Question? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
You know, I'm going to ask Janet to, I'm not going to make a motion on the Marine Resources Commission. I'm not sure what the issue is here, but this is the second time. Maybe the gentleman works on Tuesday nights, I don't know. But I'm going to put that on hold.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I
Bailey.
believe that there's two parts to the Marine Resources Commission. The first is that they're looking for Mr. Gay to be appointed to a full member because they've had a resignation. And the second is that they're looking to make Mr. O'Rourke an associate member. So we could deal with moving
I don't-
Mr. Gay
Hang
into...
on a second now. I don't know what... I don't have that.
That's what it says on my paperwork.
We already appointed Len Gay quite a while ago.
Yeah.
We appointed Len some time ago.
They gave us an old list. My list still shows the vacancy.
Janet, please update that list. Thank you. But yeah, we appointed Len, I want to say it was back in January.
To the
2
full
months ago,
membership.
right. So we'll put this one on hold, and Mr.
Okay.
Mr. O'Rourke, if you would, maybe we'll ask Janet to contact Mr. O'Rourke. And maybe Tuesday nights are bad for him, and that's fine, and we can work something out to get that done. Next, I would make a motion that we appoint Allison Wade as the high school code club representative on the recycling committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2014, which would allow, it's a 3-year term, it would allow the remainder of 2012, 2013, and 2014.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Mike. Question?
Mr. Chair.
The document that we
Mrs.
have,
Winslow?
is that what you're going to look at?
Mrs. Winslow?
No, I was... There may be an issue with the bylaw.
State?
She's a high school member.
Right.
This is not
Well-
audience participation, please. I'm
The-
sorry.
but the-
I don't mean to be fresh, but go ahead.
We have a question on the floor. Go ahead.
There's some confusion, I think, with the way that, but there's always been a high school representative on this committee for many, many years. But this is something that we're going to need to address going forward because we had this problem with the last high school person, the high school rep that serves on the committee. It conflicts with so we should probably correct that. But I knew that that people were going to bring it up, so.
Before we go any further, would you take your second back?
I'll withdraw my second.
I didn't second.
Oh, who's second?
I'll
Mr.
withdraw
Schneider.
my second.
Would
It
you
was
take
Mike.
that back, Mr. Chairman? I'd like to make a
Okay.
new motion.
Motion.
She is a high school student. I have to change my motion. I know. I got it. I was thinking 3 years, but she can't do that because then she wouldn't be in high school anymore. I would make a motion that we appoint Allison Wade as the high school code club rep for a term to expire June 30th, 2013.
Second.
Which one?
I heard
Me.
Mrs. Begley first, but
Me.
she's on the
Okay.
right side.
Yeah,
so-
she's on your right side. That's good.
Okay.
Okay, motion made. Any other question? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
All right, that takes care of that one. And we will reschedule Mr. Savageau when he's feeling better. Okay, next up is, did I miss anything?
Nope,
Any
that's it.
appointments?
Go ahead, ready to go.
Did I?
Mr. Holmes,
What did you say?
ready to go.
Oh, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, next up is a hearing. This hearing was continued from December 20th on the application for alteration of premises from Hadley McIntosh Enterprise to a bridge or Stonebridge, 5 East Boulevard, Onset, under the provisions of Chapter 138. If you want to come on up. And I will just say for the record that I didn't move this because there was no time stated on this. Typically, for the audience, when we have a license or hearing, there's a 7:15 time on this, and I didn't see a time, so it is what it is.
That's okay.
If you would just identify yourself and state the purpose. I see some letters you've submitted to the board.
Yep. My name is Justin Hadley, and I am the owner of the Stonebridge Bistro down at 5 East Boulevard in Onset Village. And today I'm presenting to you my application we were originally seeking to expand the bar, but not expand our seating inside by taking away tables. So we were going to expand our bar and replace dining seats with bar seats. Add an additional bathroom that would have easier access for handicapped. And we were looking at that time seeking a porch, but it was the concern of the board and my never having gone through this before that it is a lengthy process in order to build on a waterfront. So that has been held up, and I am at this time just seeking the internal alterations on that original plan. And that's it for tonight. And I did download some pictures if you'd like to see them of the bar, of the new bar that we've been working on. If I may.
Yes, you may.
Sorry, Mr. Hadley.
Continue.
And also, in one of my letters to you, Selectman, was trying to make some minor alterations to my hours, not changing my regular hours, but just putting in some legal jargon in order to protect myself and the town if a holiday falls on a day that I'm not regularly open. This recently became an issue, and I'd like to just not change my regular hours, but just add in some legal caveats to cover events that may come up, like 4th of July or Valentine's Day, that might fall on a day that we aren't typically open.
Mr. Chair, just
Mr.
2 points of clarification. One, it's not on the agenda to discuss Mr. Hadley's liquor license, but 2, I couldn't locate my December 20th minutes, and I thought that this board had continued, and I have a letter here from Mr. Hadley. I thought this board continued the hearing to March 6th, because I have the letter that he had sent to this board on February 6th refers to that, and that I had kind of marked into my calendar that it was going to be March 6th. But then I have a letter from our office dated February 8th that says that it was continued to tonight. But I thought that we had agreed on, when we last met on this, that it was going to be continued to March 6th.
I think if that continuation was, it was in the beginning when he had the porch on the agenda. But now he doesn't have the porch. The porch is eliminated. So.
But at the December, my point being, Mr. Cruz, that it's a public hearing, and that we started the public hearing on December 20th and notified the public that it was continued to March 6th, that they didn't really have, it just kind of showed up on the agenda. That's just my point.
Okay, point taken. Any other questions to Mr. Hadley? Mr. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Hadley. So, Mr. Hadley, how does this impact the increase in the number of seats that you had originally put in? When you had the outdoor piece of this, we were talking about putting people outside.
Yes.
So does this interior renovation actually increase your seating capacity? And by how many?
Yes. This present, without the porch addition, I'm actually bringing my internal capacity down to 75 from 77 because the bathroom would take up, it's 15 square feet per customer, and we just docked off 2 to call it safe. And we brought it from 77 down to 75.
So this is actually a decrease in your current seating capacity?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Snyder?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hadley, this is actually for Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, procedurally, my recollection was that the hearing was supposed to be rescheduled to March 6th as well. So my question is, if it's a continuation of a public hearing and it's on the agenda now, how were people to know who may have wanted to speak on this issue? How were they to know to be present this evening?
Now, I don't know if they were notified or not, but they were, and like you said, it was continued. But when it was continued, it was because of the increase of his doing the porch. If you change a footprint of any establishment, you have to go. You have to go through the board, the ABC, that's Alcohol Beverage Commission. But since this is just the interior renovation that he's doing now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think he needs.
But it started as a public hearing, and the public hearing was continued and has not been closed.
Well, if we okay this, then it will be closed.
Yeah, it is my recollection it was continued to March 6th. And I was surprised to see it come earlier.
Mr. Hadley, I just want to make sure that we do things correctly so that you're protected and we're protected.
Yeah.
So it's not any reflection of...
If I have to wait till March 6th, that's okay.
Well, if we read the letter, it does say, and it's from the town of Wareham, that please be advised the application of Stonebridge for alteration of premises has been continued to Tuesday, February 21st, 2012.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
But the letter that I had referred to, which is February 6th, and do you understand where I'm coming from, Mr. Hadley?
Exactly. I know exactly what you mean.
So on December 20th, that was the original, is that correct?
Yeah, I notified my abutters.
Right. So you did all that stuff, and then we met on December 20th, and this board agreed to continue to March 6th.
Yeah.
So that was on television. That's in our minutes. And then, and you sent a letter acknowledging that it was March 6th. The continuation was to March 6th. That was on February 6th.
Okay.
But then a letter came from our office on February 8th notifying you that it was sooner.
Yes.
So I understand, Chairman Cruz, where you're coming from, that because it's interior alterations, but if we notified the public in this public forum that the hearing was continued to March 6th, I'm not sure that we can just have a letter sent from our office on February 8th and bring it up to the 21st. I just want to do things all the right way so that to protect Mr. Hadley and the town. But that said, I just have a couple of questions, if we're going to continue this public hearing.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Chairman, I think Mrs. Begley is absolutely right on. There's a public hearing that was postponed till March the 6th. It appears to me that come March the 6th, nobody has to be here because the March 6th meeting was to discuss the porch and alterations to the building and alterations. What he's done doesn't require anything from this board. He has all the permits. He hasn't changed anything from the sounds of it. So if he's not going to put a porch on, he can send a letter and we can just open the meeting and cancel the meeting. But if he wants to alter that license with language, then you have to fill out the form to do that.
Yeah, it seems
but this is not that public meeting was postponed till March 6th.
Yeah, and it was only the porch that was a contentious issue, and that's why it was postponed. So maybe
off the table, I would think that come March 6th, you could probably submit a letter to the office that says yeah, I'm not interested in continuing, then at that point, we can vote to close that hearing. We can't do it today. I don't see anything in here that you need to be here for. Unless I'm missing something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it's interior alterations and you're not changing the footprint, I think you're fine. If you change the footprint and you're no longer doing the porch, that's off the table. So I think,
Correct.
like you said earlier, the contention was with the porch and the added occupancy that you were going to have with it.
Yeah.
But now that's a moot point, so all you're doing is alterations.
Yeah, at this time, I'm only seeking these interior alterations. And
Right.
that's
What
it.
we can do is hold it, get a clarification from Mr. Bowen, and if he doesn't have to come back, then you're good to go.
I just have a question. I understand that you're not changing the footprint, and I don't want to continue this public hearing, and this is just a question. If you want to answer, it's certainly up to you. When your current capacity is what, Mr. Hadley?
77.
So that's the current. You can have, so with your diners at tables and at the bar at 77.
Yeah, that's allowing 15 square feet per customer in my...
Okay, so that's what you've had ongoing.
Correct.
Okay, just...
Yeah.
And this would be whoever's signing off, and I'm sure that they're going to dot the I's and cross the T's, and I know that you're going to have a handicap-accessible restroom, which is great. But do you have handicap parking?
We do not have it labeled right now, and this was brought up to me, and I will most definitely label or designate a spot for handicap parking.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, if there are any other questions, I think, thank you for coming in. Just make sure you got your permits,
Yeah.
and Mr. Andrews will get up with Mr. Bowen just to...
Yeah. Is there any way we could go over the hours just really quickly?
Well, we'll have to call a separate meeting for that. Huh?
It's a different item.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so we'll
Okay.
have to post it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you. Town Administrator's report.
Is this a public hearing? You opened the meeting, you had the discussion. Is this
It's not a public
No,
hearing.
it isn't. Well, we won't have to continue anything because, right, it's not open, it's not a public meeting. And since, well, we never opened it, right. So if it was about the porch, we just canceled.
Mr. Andrews?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and through the board to the listening audience and the audience in the boardroom. Mr. Cole, may I ask you? And Mr. Sullivan. I'm sorry. Come on up. This evening, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to introduce, not only per the request of the board, but also to bring item 6 up, if we could. Maybe Justin, you can give us Justin Cole, as you all know, is the town accountant working with the financial and fiscal offices of the town. And maybe, Justin, you can give us an update as to where things stand. Perhaps get some definitions and some basic understanding of where things are right at this particular time. And then I'd like to also go over some of the notes that I took from our meeting with the Department of Revenue on February 10th. Mr. Cole?
Great, thank you. I'd just like to thank the board for inviting me tonight to give a...
You have to really speak right into that. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Justin Cole. I work for Bay State Municipal Accounting Group, serving as the interim town accountant for the town. I want to thank the board for allowing me to give a quick recap tonight on the progress of the town accountant's office. Just quickly, I want to recap where we've been. The tax rate was set as of December 28th, and our actual tax bills went out before the December 31st deadline. The free cash was submitted just after Christmas on December 26th, returned back approximately January 5th. Currently on the docket now, we're in the process of reviewing and auditing the posted transactional data for FY 2012. That's for the period of July through December and January. We've also started the process of refiling the 2010 Schedule A, which I know some board members received a letter, a generated form letter from the state on that. The 2010 Schedule A was originally submitted to the state as part of the year-end process in the fall of 2010. However, the state has since returned that to the town for additional review due to some material weaknesses they found within the data. We're in the process of bridging the gap between the data that was originally submitted and the corrected data that Powers and Sullivan issued as part of the 2010 draft financials that were presented mid-December of this year. That process is on schedule to conclude in approximately a week and a half, the first week of March or so. At that time, we will begin the process of submitting the 2011 data, which was originally due October 31st. At this time, we believe that all of the data will be in by the state's deadline, which is March 23rd, 2012. Going forward, the cash reconciliation with the Treasurer's Office, which was a large item that Powers and Sullivan have brought up, has been completed through December 31st, 2011. We're in the process of posting the adjusting entries and having Powers and Sullivan review those items just to make sure that we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's for everything. That process of the adjusting entries should conclude in the next week or two, at which time we'll submit draft schedules to Craig Peacock of Powers and Sullivan to review for us. Receivables, tax receivables, water sewer receivables have been reconciled with the collector and the assessor through December 31st. All of those items tie, and there are no adjusting entries for those items, so those will be going off to Powers and Sullivan again in the next week or so. We've completed the first financial reports for 2012. I believe Mr. Sullivan has or will be distributing for the financial reports for the period ending January 31st. There are some items that are still in flux in those reports. However, we've narrowed it down to just a small handful of transactions that still need to be audited and reviewed with individual department heads. For the most part, the results are favorable. Our revenues as of the end of that period are up approximately 1% over our forecasted benchmark. There were some questions during the recap process about where licenses and permits and a few other fees would come in, but so far to date, everything is looking solid. The motor vehicle commitments came out in February, so it's a little early to tell where that receipt is, but all indications for the first few weeks that that's been out there, the collections look like they should be on par. Overall expenditures are actually trending slightly under where we expected. Generally, at the end of that period, we expect expenditures to be somewhere in the area of 58 to 65% of budget. We're trending approximately 55% now, and that is adjusted for a few timing items such as debt payments and things like that. We're going to try to recommend and work with department heads to keep that trend on the lower side, just to be on the safe side going through the rest of the year. As long as the revenues continue to trend upwards and we hold back expenditures 1 or 2%, our feeling is that we should be safe going into the 2012 year end, and it should make it a much smoother process. That combined with the lower snow and ice expenditures for this year, which hopefully hold out for the balance of the winter and spring months, should put us in a favorable position to close the year end rather quickly this year. Overall, we've started the process of reviewing the internal workflows of the office per Powers and Sullivan's recommendations. We've looked at reconciliation and workflow procedures from everything from accounts payable to payroll, cash receipts, receivables. We've started making some initial recommendations within a few of the departments just to get the ball rolling and get the dialogue started on more robust procedures. We're hoping by the time we get to the end of March to have some draft procedures to the administrator's office for review and recommendation for implementation starting the fourth quarter, April 1st. Right now, all the department heads have been very helpful in assisting us in the audit and reconciliation of the posted transactions. We're confident at this point that by the time we get to June 30th, the financial reporting and all of the past issues that Powers and Sullivan had identified should be rectified, barring any unforeseen circumstance at this point, most of which we've flushed out so far. We have a strong feeling that everything should probably end on time, on schedule, and that we should be able to begin the year-end reporting process this year over the summer rather than waiting till the later fall. Does anybody have any questions related to any of the financial matters that Powers and Sullivan have previously brought up? Or
Any question? We'll start on the left this time. Mrs. Winslow.
Oh, no, start on the right.
Mr. Snyder.
Mr. Chairman, through you, what are the items that you were talking about, Mr. Cole, that were in flux? Is that procedural, or is that just?
Currently, some of the transactional items that we're working with, expenditures related to the damage cleanup from Hurricane Irene for municipal maintenance, is probably at the top of the list. We're going through the process of tracking down the documentation for state and federal funding that will cover the town's portion of those expenditures. That's really the largest item right now. It's approximately $140,000. That skews the report slightly, obviously, because it's $140,000 that is not a regular operating expense. That is pushing, well, if included, pushes the average higher, artificially higher than it should be.
And what are the areas that those reimbursements would hit? Are they? Do you know off the top of your head, like what departments?
Currently, for the most part, it's just municipal maintenance.
Just municipal maintenance.
They were diligent in segregating the expenses related to those cleanup items, so they're booked to a specific account within municipal maintenance for the purposes of applying for the reimbursement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned, Mr. Cole, that reconciliation had occurred through December 2011.
Yes.
And that's where we're at now. We are up to date through this past December on reconciliation.
Correct. So fully reconciled through December 31st, and then we still have pending open reconciliations for January and mid-February.
And when was that accomplished?
Through December 31st, I'd have to check my notes, but I believe it was within approximately the second week in January.
And I guess it's more that, these letters from the state, I don't, you're in the business, right?
Yes.
So you think they're form letters. I don't look at them that way because I'm not in your position, right? But there have been two letters in the past 2 weeks that we received. One was on this Schedule A, right, for 2010.
Yes.
2011, threatening to withhold our quarterly payment for aid to cities and towns.
Correct.
Right. And Mr. Cruz has assured me that you're going to have that in their office by March
23rd is their deadline.
That's not the date.
Well, we had indicated that we believe that it should be in by March 17th.
March 17th.
Right. The state's deadline is March 23rd.
You said that's a form letter. When you say form letter,
the state's...
Do you think that they're not...
The state's data bank system, their computer program that tracks their statistical data, automatically generates letters to municipal members at various points and deadlines. We know that one of the letters that we received, there were two letters that arrived relatively close to each other. One of them was a letter specifically drafted for the town of Wareham. The second letter that went out perhaps on Friday was the system's automatically generated letter.
Is that why we each got them separate?
Correct. It goes to everybody.
Generated?
Yes, it goes to everyone who's listed in the DLS databank.
To the first letter, there are concerns over this health trust fund. Have you had an opportunity when you've been here, December, January, February? No, you haven't, had a lot of days off, but have you had an opportunity to look at where we're at on that? In terms of taking this holiday?
We have not completed the calculations for the holiday. As of the June 30th, 2011, the trust fund was in a healthy position. It had reserved earnings of $2.5 million with an additional retained earnings of $400,000 plus. We have worked with Powers & Sullivan through the fall to look through basically October, November at that, where it stood as of the end of October. It was looking healthy. We have additional audit and transactional data to look at for November, December, January. And until we complete that and touch base with Powers & Sullivan on the results of that, we're uncomfortable really commenting on the exact position of it. As part of the review that the Administrator's Office talked about with Powers & Sullivan in terms of the first half of the year, that's item number one that we want to really work with them on to make sure that we have done our due diligence and we've found everything, and that we've had a second set of eyes look at that, prior to making a commitment to that.
Good, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Begley?
Hi, Mr. Cole. Thank you for staying so late after, I'm sure, a long day. You briefly mentioned the material weaknesses that were identified by Powers & Sullivan. And I know that you've been busy kind of going back and doing, reconciling what needed to be reconciled. Going forward, because I believe you're contracted through June?
Correct.
Do you have, and I know you've probably got a list as long as my arm, but I'm sure that on that list is policies and procedures?
Yes.
For not only within your own office, but within departments, so that we can kind of prevent anybody from taking a shortcut or kind of doing their own thing with the VADAR system.
Right, correct.
So has that been what some of the issues were, was that people were either not educated on the VADAR system or, I mean, you can only speculate, I understand that. But there didn't seem to be a consistency between departments with that use, with the VADAR.
Correct. What we've noted so far is it seems to be a combination of a training issue. VADAR is one of the smaller applications out there. So depending on different municipal experience that some people have had, you either worked with it or you haven't. There are a lot of nuances in there that aren't necessarily intuitive. What we find here and in other towns that we work in is that there's a bit of a training issue between departments. The assessors know how to use the assessor's part. The treasurer and collector know how to use their part. Without a wider understanding of the cause and effect of what someone does in one area, how it affects accounting or collector. With that said, I think to the greater degree, as you mentioned, it's more about the procedures of how you use the system within the department, segregating functions within the department to specific staff members rather than letting any staff member do some of these items. What we've started to do internally is narrow down specifically what items particular staff members work on, and thereby adjusting their security levels up or down to accommodate that, so that a transaction cannot be posted in error or is not posted by an employee that shouldn't be handling a transaction of that nature. I believe that's going to go a long way in some of the higher level errors that happened in terms of not knowing how to post a particular transaction. One of the things that Powers & Sullivan noted to us was the inconsistent use of journal entries, for example. There are 3 different journal entry types that you can use, and they're all reflected very differently in the system. So unless you have extensive knowledge of how to set up each type and when to use it, it can have the devastating effects that we've seen in some of the the prior financial history. By reducing the system security access to individual employees, you set up a system where those transactions need to either be approved by a higher level employee, or those types of transactions can only be conducted and initiated by a higher level employee. We've to date shut off most of the access to those system features until we've had an opportunity to sit with staff and evaluate their level of knowledge, and do a little testing with them to make sure that those are transactional types that they should be appropriate for them to handle.
So to clarify, you've identified minimal number of people in each department, but they have to sign on. So any kind of entry or any, I guess entry is the right word, that person would be identified as to who made that entry, and others could access but kind of a read-only.
Correct. Yeah, there's an audit trail that's generated when an individual employee posts a transaction, which is easy enough for us to follow. The problem really boils down into the accounting office, where the system unfortunately only records the last user to touch an entry. So what we found in reviewing the older financial history is we can only see the person who hit the post button, and in many cases that person wasn't necessarily the person who originated or set up the transaction, and in many cases we're unsure who had the original documentation that initiated the journal entry, because again, we can only see who actually posted it.
That was going to be my next question, is that the way it's set up now, for someone to make a journal entry, they would have to have supporting documentation at the same time, or would it have to be the same person signing on that began the process would have to post the supporting documentation?
The way we have it set up now is that we do allow the assistant town accountant to set up entries. She can only bring it to the pending status, so all of the documentation that she can print out and that she is required to sign all indicates on it that it is pending. Final posted documentation can only be generated by myself or my associates at this point. And again, anything that we post is recorded in a transactional log, as well as printed and signed by the individual employee who finalized the transaction.
So this is kind of a temporary measure until you have policies and procedures. I mean, it's temporary with you, but you're going to have some kind of policies and procedures within your department and within other departments to kind of keep this going on the same track.
Correct. We're going to recommend up front just a general policies and procedures that are a best practice that are accepted in the municipal accounting community. Every town has specific nuances in which those things may need to be updated or tweaked a little bit, but the general best practices state that you have a chain of custody on these things, and that no one employee is responsible for the transactional cycle from the beginning to end. It's in order to prevent fraud, mistakes. I mean, it's just a second set of eyes are on these things. And even between departments, between the assessor and the collector, it's committed by the assessor, the collector receives documentation, reviews it, and then actually posts a commitment or posts an abatement, and it's the same thing coming up to accounting. Anything that's originated by the collector or the treasurer is reviewed by accounting before it's finally posted. So we're trying to set up a culture of it's all right for someone in another department to review the transaction before it's posted, and to really build a culture of, two set of eyes are better than one on a lot of these items. Everyone gets busy, and it's obviously easier to just set it up and post it yourself, but the best practice really states that somebody needs to initiate the transaction, somebody needs to finalize the transaction.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andrews?
Justin, maybe we could go into, just to follow up, the board has a set of notes that I compiled from our meeting on February 10th, And this was a meeting that the Department of Revenue, Jerry Perry, who's the Director of Accounts, and their field representative, Jared Curtis, who has been out a number of times, asked for. They wanted to have certain fiscal staff in the room, and we talked really through a number of main talking points. I put 6 major talking points together. They really pointed out something. I brought a copy because it sits on my desk, but the Department of Revenue report that was asked for by the town, the management study going back to June of 2010. And if you go back a decade, you could probably dust it off and find the same report with maybe a couple of changes here or there. Stressing that we really need a higher, stressing the importance, if you will, with regards to the importance of stability at the Board of Selectmen and town administrators level and senior administrators level in terms of other department heads that make up the leadership team. They also recommended, and on page 2, we have put out a reposting for a town accountant at a higher rate of pay. At any given moment, you can go into the Mass Municipal Association or other types of publications, GFOA, and find that we're all competing for a limited resource that's out there. We want to take another run at this, and the board asked me to do this, and we have put it out there, hopefully to attract talent as we go through this process. And they also indicated that they commended the hiring of Bay State Municipal Accounting in their letter dated, I believe it was on last Thursday, the 13th, Monday, the 13th, that with regards to the interim town accountant status that we have with Justin. And they also recommended a bridge process by which the interim would work with if we are successful, which I hope we are, at finding a town accountant that will provide a smooth transition and bridge period going into the next fiscal year. They also sent a follow-up letter, which we got last year, outlining the components of the fiscal 2013 on basically how to set the tax rate, which includes we'll have to have a management letter, we'll have to have the federal A-133 review, we'll have to have a balance sheet for fiscal 2012, and we'll have to have these submissions to the Department of Revenue no later than November 1st, 2012. And I think one of the things that I'm very concerned with and have spent a lot of time looking at is getting back on cycle, where we actually have an audit report completed through the accounts payable period. Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, it's through July 15th in terms of processing AP documents?
Correct, yeah, the receiver period is July 15th.
So, take that out another 6 or 7 weeks, and we should have a field team in and completing their process sometime, right after Labor Day. We should have a process that's taking some shape in terms of an audit, which we will get to hopefully back on that cycle. And the Department of Revenue has set March 23rd, as a deadline for these Schedule A's. And can you just spend a minute so that people understand that there's a couple gears that are turning at the same time in terms of setting the tax rate and what the Schedule A means to the state and to us?
Right, so the process in a normal year is you get to the end of the summer, your accrual period ends August 31st. You start free cash. Generally, free cash is done by September 30th. Schedule A is done October 31st, and your recap is done within 30 days of your fall town meeting-ish. Generally speaking, the Schedule A is a statistical tool that the DOR uses just as a summary of your revenues and expenditures by function. It's the same information that's reported on free cash. It's the same information that's reported on the tax rate. In terms of the priority or the order of operations, in a normal year, Schedule A and the tax rate are interchangeable depending on the timing or your town or when the fall town meeting is. In terms of priority, however, free cash is first, the tax rate is second, and then Schedule A generally comes in third in terms of what it means to the town. as I stated, because the Schedule A is a statistical summary of data, it's used by the state to make comparisons between towns in terms of revenues and collections and expenditures by function. They unofficially allow a little flexibility in when you submit it. Their understanding of they have an October 31st deadline. However, if your fall town meeting or your recap process is delayed, they'll allow you to prioritize your tax rate process prior to the submission. The penalty for not submitting your Schedule A is withholding of third quarter aid. Generally speaking, if you've missed the October 31st deadline, they'll send you a reminder in January indicating again that you've missed the deadline and that your aid will be withheld. Those notifications ramp up, obviously, the later you go on that. The DOR databank requires the information by the end of the third quarter, because that's when they start the process of doing the comparisons between similar communities for the prior year. So it's important to the databank to get that information by the March 23rd that they've outlined. And it's important for the town to make sure that we get that information in, obviously to get our aid, but also so that we're not delaying the statistical process that the state is trying to undertake as well.
Thank you, Justin. And also, we intend to do this, once again, just for the record, by the 17th or so, sometime in that timeline, to have it in. At least that's what we discussed at the meeting.
Correct. Because we have to refile the 2010, it's not just submitting the 2011 Schedule A, because we have to refile the 2010. We're estimating that should take place in the first week of March. The Department of Revenue Databank then needs to take that, and they have to overwrite the previous submission. They've indicated to us that should take approximately 2 to 3 days, but depending on their own internal resources, it may take longer. We've buffered 3 days into our timeline at this point to get to the March 17th deadline. I don't believe it will actually take us until the 17th. However, if it takes 4 or 5 or 6 business days for the data bank to do the resubmission of the 2010 report, that allows us a little bit of a cushion to still make our March 17 deadline for the 2011 submission.
Great. And just the last point that was made at the meeting, obviously the DOR reps stressed this not only for Wareham but for a number of communities, that we need to work on fiscal recovery. We have to be very conservative with regards to projection of revenues and expenses as we move through the fiscal year, and that they were asking us to be very conservative with regards to the fiscal 2013 budget process, as well as the use of the options that we have with regards to the healthcare trust fund. And they made it abundantly clear to us that they're going to be working closely with us, this board, our independent auditors, to be able to make sure that we're all on the same page and looking at the same documents. And I want to thank you for your fine work, not only in bringing us to this point. The last point I'd like to make, which is not on this sheet, is that I have spoken with Jim Powers, per my recommendation, on December 14th last year, and they are setting up a field team to come in as soon as we can get them scheduled. Just an estimate in terms of...
I've talked to Powers and Sullivan as recently as last week, and we've tentatively scheduled a date of the 5th to have a meeting to schedule the field work. They've sent a preliminary list of items that they would like to look at. At that time, we're to give them a status on each individual item, and then based on the timelines we have for the completion of the preliminary worksheet that they sent across, to then go ahead and schedule a review for the first and second quarter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Mr. Rizzo?
May I ask a question through you to the town administrator? While I certainly appreciate getting the town accountant position posted, I am concerned because there has not been a personnel plan since brought to town meeting in many years. And a couple of years ago, we actually disbanded the personnel board. And the last personnel plan that was approved at town meeting would have been quite some time ago, and it did not authorize the salary range. So I'm wondering if we can, and now I understand that this position is supposed to be included in the management bargaining unit, potentially.
That's not my understanding.
Okay, so this is one of the 3 positions that remains outside of it.
That's my understanding.
So we need to figure out how we're going to address that. Was something that town meeting didn't address, in terms of there is no personnel board any longer. We don't bring the personnel plan to town meeting. It's getting late, so don't quote me, but I don't think we budgeted this kind of money for this position in this line item. So how are we going to pay for this?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, there's actually 3 questions in one. The first is, my understanding is that with the elimination of the personnel plan, that those duties and responsibilities fall on the shoulders of the town administrator. That's my understanding. I've asked Attorney Bowen to take a look at how would we best fit this in if we needed to fit it in. And that's number 2. Number 3, this is projected out because Mr. Cole's contract runs us through June 30th. So this is for fiscal 2013. If we are successful in finding a town accountant, which seems to be like hen's teeth around not only the Commonwealth but throughout the region, that we will be in a position and have put in the budget for fiscal 2013 the $95,000 amount for this slot in the budget.
And was there any comparison to similar communities done before this salary range was come up with? This seems like a...
Mr. Chairman, help me, because we talked about this from the get-go, and this is the recommendation of the Department of Revenue. They cited a number of communities that have been looking, gone posted after posted item that has gone up. The town of Belmont. I know Dartmouth is looking for a town accountant. I know that I believe the town of Athol is looking for a Northborough. There are a number of communities out there looking for a qualified accountant that would come. And let me just say this to you. We did this process 2 times last year. My goal is to get it finally completed so that we can have a person in the office, and by the way, that has the credentials that we're looking for, and be of the type of, once again, caliber of town accountant that we can all be proud of.
Well, I don't disagree with those sentiments. However, I'm concerned that we have not looked at, while I understand the importance of getting a qualified accountant and that other people might be looking for accountants, this salary range is close to $30,000 more than we paid the last accountant, and $10,000, $15,000 more than what we advertised the last go-round. And I'm not necessarily convinced that throwing more money out there necessarily is going to attract a better candidate, and I would be more comfortable. The DOR is located in Boston, and those jobs tend to pay better than the ones around here. I would be more comfortable, before we go to town meeting and tell them that we're trying to be conservative, but we want to, bring this salary line item in, knowing what surrounding communities like Middleborough and Bourne are paying their town accountant, because they have one, right?
Mr. Chair, I was on the search committee. Could I just address Selectman Winslow's concerns? I was on the search committee, and we did 2 go-rounds. The search committee recommended after the first time, and we recommended after the second time, strongly that we increase the amount of money. The committee looked at it. The search committee looked around at what other accountants were making. We looked at what job postings, and we had a member of the finance committee. I was there. The financial officer for the school department and the town treasurer collector. Both times, we strongly recommended increasing the salary.
But what was that? I'm not getting an answer to my question. What are we basing this number on? We're not asking for any additional, if we were going to hire a CPA, then I would say, great, $95,000. But when we haven't really increased the level of qualification, the only thing we've done is tack more money on it. So I'm not, just in my experience through you, Mr. Chair, to Mrs. Begley, and I spent many years watching these positions be filled in the public sector, I'm not so sure that putting more money on it necessarily is going to give us the successful candidate. And I want to be sure that, a town that's paying a town accountant $95,000 a year is paying that person because they might be a CPA or because perhaps they meet some other qualification. I mean, this salary is a master's level, CPA salary. And that's not a qualification. We're only requiring a bachelor's degree with a master's preferred. So I'm concerned about where we've posted this salary and what we've listed for minimum qualifications. And I want that out there because I understand what you're saying.
You have to read the whole sentence.
What was that?
I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead, please.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I agree with you that we probably do need to pay this position higher, but at the same time, we have to demand a higher level of qualification. Because otherwise, we're just going to get people who've been, have the minimum qualifications looking for a $90,000 to $95,000 a year job. That's
I'm
my
going to
point.
step in right here. I was at that meeting on the 10th, and it was strongly recommended by the DOR. Now, because we have the 90 to 95,000, he recommended 92 and above. Okay, we went from 90 to 95. Now, you're absolutely correct. With that salary, you're going to get more people applying. But that's where our job comes in, and Mr. Andrews come in to weed out, to make sure, and Justin Cole's going to work with us, to make sure we weed out and get the best bang for our bucks. Just because we put 90 down doesn't mean we're going to get someone that's making 50,000 to come and step in. We're going to look at it, analyze it with the search committees that we have, or however Mr. Andrews sets it up, and make sure that we get whoever's qualified enough to do the job. We've already been to a couple of accountants. We had problems. Now, are we going to pay $80,000 or $70,000 and come into the same situation again and have to have Mr. Cole come back in? No, we're going to try to do this right the first time. And I hope that we do, because we need to have it done. That's the basic of everything. This is the accountant, and we need to have the proper people in the proper spots. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I understand that.
Wait up. Anybody else on the board? Because you've already had a... Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to your comments. I think that from my standpoint, and certainly, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to speak for the Finance Committee, but this has been discussed as well during the Finance Committee meetings, and the need to increase the salary and the experience level and the talent. So this isn't really anything new, and I think the last posting that went out, correct me if I'm wrong, was around $82,000 to $84,000. So we're talking really about an increment of $10,000 or so. And we are asking, I mean, the posting does say that we're looking for a special criteria qualified CPA with full knowledge of the VADAR accounting system. And I assume that the Director of Accounts also for the Department of Revenue also has a good idea of what the salary range should be, because they're dealing with town accountants on a regular basis.
Correct.
So, from my standpoint, I'm pretty comfortable, and I'm pretty comfortable that this issue has been vetted through the Finance Committee as well. And I think it's an absolute need, and I do understand what your point is. But I think it does say, within the job description, a qualified CPA.
Mr. Chair, in order to be a qualified CPA, unless you fell under the old sets of rules, you have to have a master's. The minimum qualification for this job is a bachelor's. And that's what my concern is. This is a master's level paycheck with a minimum qualification of a bachelor's degree.
Thank you very much. You want to move on, Mr.?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Do I get 30 seconds? Mr. Cruz, really, just 2 quick points. One, if we're following our own recommendations, the statement that the salary isn't in effect until 2013 would be incorrect, because we posted in the job now, we are recommending a bridge, whether that's 60 or 90 days, so 1/3 of that would come out of this year's budget for that bridge work, because that would be before July 1st or June 30th, right? And I know that we had some issues when we signed this particular contract. We had to go to finance, so we may have to go back again to pay for that portion. Let's say the person worked 2 months. You have to take 2 months, 2/12ths, right, out of that to pay for his salary or her salary till the end of the fiscal year, unless you have that money somewhere. And the second point is, or you're going to have them start on, have the person start on July 1st and extend Mr. Cole's contract, so you have a choice there. The second point is, in my conversations with the previous accountant, I understood that when that person was hired, they had a work contract. When that contract was to be renewed, they were going to be a member of the Steel Workers Management Union, not some independent employee in the town.
Mr. Chairman.
So I mean, I don't know, but I would think that a department head would be, in that union.
Mr. Chairman, there are lists, and I'll double check it. I'll start with the second question, if I might. This is a position, and once again, just to point out, on the special criteria, certainly when you point to a CPA status, you are talking master's level work. You're not talking, this is a position that is a higher level educational, meets a higher level educational attainment, number one. Number two, we do have a personnel line for the former town accountant that for, I'd call it a subsidiary account detail issue. Would you say that's a fair statement with regards to how we pay you and how we would pay a person?
Correct. The way after the proposed town meeting article that your office is working on, there will actually still be funds in there related to the original salary line. So there would be a little bit of flexibility in the currently approved town meeting salary line for the town accountant.
Right. So if it's 1/12, then we start the person at the 1/12 level, and at this particular juncture, given that we've been out 2 times, given that the Department of Revenue, their own field representative and the Director of Accounts, who has been at the DOR for over 30 years, has said to the town that we really need to make this this adjustment, and we can work on the subsidiary account details at a later time. But the idea here is that in the line right now, we have monies for a town accountant that would be able to be hired by the end of the fiscal year, but we are building into the 2013 budget sufficient resources to pay an individual like this. And let me just make one last point. If we don't come up with the proper, if we don't see the resume tag that gives us the full faith and understanding that we're getting what we pay for, guess what? My recommendation would be to stay with Municipal Accounting Group until we do find somebody, because we need that qualification, that level of qualification in that position. And as Chairman Cruz has said, it's gone a couple accountants through the process, and now we're back on track with the fiscal recovery plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want to proceed?
Okay, I'm sorry. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, Mr. Chairman, that takes care of items A and G. If I could go into, we have begun the planning phase for what I would call the third annual Wareham Works 2012, which we're going to try a little different venue here, which is to be held on March 30th, 2012, from 3 to 7 p.m. We're trying to keep the same motif as we had last year. We're also looking to use the central theme of education, Education is the key to success. And we have invited, and he has accepted, Congressman Bill Keating will be here as our keynote speaker. We also will have Admiral Richard Guerin, President of Mass Maritime. We have a representative or the president of Bridgewater State University, Dana Malafaria, or his vice president, one of his vice presidents will be here. President Kathleen Schatzberg from the Cape Cod Community College will be with us. We're waiting on some of the other college presidents to alert us to their schedule. I spoke with Kevin Farr, superintendent of the Upper Cape Regional Tech School, and they'll be here with us. So we're planning that for, please hold a date, March 30th to Friday. We're trying something a little bit different of a venue, and I'll keep the board posted. The second item I wanted to say that I was proud to attend the Onset Bay Association's annual meeting held on Thursday, February 2nd at Salerno's Restaurant and Function Hall, and I was very impressed, particularly with the highlighted Junior Onset Bay Association, the fine work that they had done, and also with the presentation by Jay Hurd of WCTV. On Saturday, February 4th, I participated in I Love My Library Rally. I have a button that's up on the wall in my office. Great family event focusing on children and the tremendous resources at the library. I was joined by Representative Susan Williams-Gifford, Dave Evans, and Bob White for this event. And this might sound like a small item, but I know how important we all feel some of our dogs are. We have met and received a grant for $4,148 for Massachusetts Vest a Dog program. It's a real program, and the canine approval has been included. We're going to receive 2 Hut and Pop units, which will be installed, and 1 Ray Allen kimono for the dogs. And once again, very creative program that the chief went after with his team at the police station. I urge you all to attend and participate in. The Mass Municipal Association is having their annual spring local government legislative breakfast meetings. One has gone by us, February 17th, but one is coming up on Friday, the 24th, and also on Friday, March 2nd. This involves communities in discussing issues from local aid to local grant programs in the upcoming budget participation at the House and Senate levels of their budget work. And on status report, we are still working closely with regards to Article 48, with regards to our legislative delegation, working together as one unit with the school district. And I'll have to get an update on town hall virtualization, as most of the day was spent getting the email server back up and running. And I don't have a written report from Matt, but I'll get that to you. And in your packet, you have you should have the color-copied version of the Financial Management Action Plan from our last meeting. I'll make necessary changes with the town accountant and get you an updated grid for the next meeting. And that covers my town administrator's report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Rizzo? Mr. Snyder?
Next, we have a meeting with the Board of Health. Would you introduce
Hi, my name is
yourself?
Glenn Montero, member of the Wareham Board of Health, about 4 or 5 months now, and I'm not sure why I'm here, so it's up to you to hit me with a question.
I'm not sure either, Mr.
You know, the other members weren't notified, so I wasn't sure if there's any questions. We have your liaison there at our meetings every week. When we meet, we have recorded messages, and we also have minutes, so.
This was just for an update, if I may, Mr. Cruz. I think that a letter went out with from Shirley from the office, and it's just to not a whole lot of people, unfortunately, attend all these committee meetings, Mr. Montero. And although some of yours have been televised recently, which is great, but just for let people know what's going on. I know you've had an ongoing workshop with the nitrogen regulations
Yes, we
and
do.
having conversations. So if you could just elaborate
Well, we
on
have
that
the
a little
workshop. We'll continue having the workshop because now we have a new member. Next meeting, we're going to have to vote for a chairman and continue with these workshops because a lot of people still don't know what's going on, and we don't either, to the point. Otherwise, the Board of Health has a normal meeting, conduct normal business, and as soon as the nitrogen system issue is over, then it will be a regular board meeting like you people.
bit. Mhm.
And I hope we continue. Like I say, I hope we continue. The board itself continue as a long period of time because every time we get to know someone, they leave, just like your board. So that's all I have to say right now.
Are there any
Issues?
No.
No.
Is there any plans on having any kind of continuation of the public hearing for the nitrogen regs? Anything?
Yes,
in
we
the
have
works?
to. We have to. As soon as we get it all out of place, we're going to have to approach the school department and and have the auditorium for the school to have that meeting. You can see what happened the first time in the town hall. It might be just before town meeting. We're not sure. We're going to have to meet on it the next week and find out when we're going to have it. Probably during school vacation of some kind, when the auditorium is not used at all.
Mhm.
So that's it.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify something because I was at the last Board of Health meeting, and I didn't see it until just before this meeting. It went to Mr. Holmes, but I think it was dated the 21st, 11:45 a.m. There's a letter here that said, and I'm glad, I can't tell you how happy I am that you have a physician on the Board of Health, but it says the Wareham Board of Health discussed the appointment and are in favor of the appointment. But I don't recall seeing a vote.
No, we didn't vote on anything.
Okay. Just to clarify.
No, we didn't vote on anything. You voted just now for the new
Right,
appointee.
right, but your board, your current Board of Health didn't vote.
No, we didn't vote, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for...
Just a quick question, Mr. Montero. I know that there has been a lot of turnover in the Board of Health in the past few months. Do you think that part of that is, or could have to do with the hours that the Board of Health meets?
No, I think the hours were probably done for Dr. Gleason at the time. And I've only been on it for a while. I know we used to meet at 7 o'clock, too, right down the hall years ago when I was part of the health inspection. But 4 o'clock is convenient for a lot of people, especially senior citizens who might want to come and sit on at some of our meetings. To that point, I'd rather have it at 4 o'clock.
Okay. I was just curious if that might have been impacting, might have been one of the reasons why there has been
And
turnover.
Mrs. Bagley can go home early.
Oh, no. Just one more, when Mrs. Winslow's done. Just one more question. Because I remember when Dr. Weingart said that it may have been a problem for her to meet at 4, and then she said that there was some discussion that it could be pushed back to 5.
Well, that's up to us to vote on that. But you got to realize that Lisa Irish came all the way from Boston to meet a 4 o'clock meeting. Frank DeFelice came all the way from Kingston. And the doctor here is local, so there's no reason why she shouldn't be able to attend it. She's not like she punches the clock.
She's seeing patients.
She's seeing patients. She can just excuse her patient at 3:30 and come to the meeting. Simple as that.
I hope that's the case.
Let's see what happens. She's only got 3 or 4 months to continue, and then if she can't continue it, then she probably would have to leave and get another. Again, we get another meeting coming with another person. So let's see what happens when she shows up next week.
Now, what changed the meetings from 7 to 4? Do you know?
I don't know. I wasn't at the time. I wasn't on the board.
Before
so I
my
don't
time.
know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Meeting time is set up by the boards.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to you.
It's up to us, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have some members of the Conservation Commission here. Good evening.
Good evening, Sandy Slavin.
Tell us who you are.
Sandy Slavin. I'm Vice Chair of the Conservation Commission. This invitation was not on our last agenda, so we as a committee did not vote on someone to come before you, and I'm just notifying you I would prefer an invitation again when we have a chance to talk about it.
We will pass that along to the office and make sure that I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you, I'll pass that along and make sure that our invitations go out timely.
We do meet on the first and third Wednesday, so it would be helpful if it was at least a week before one of our meetings.
And we have that information.
Oh, thank you.
Next is the Marine Resource Committee. You're all by yourself.
Actually, the chairman could not make it. Basically, I believe they got an invitation around Thursday of this past week. We, of course, meet the second Wednesday of the month, but he sent me a note asking me to represent him here. So we'll take care of it. We had another member here who wasn't feeling well, so he went home a little while ago. The committee's been working for the last year and a half on a harbor management plan. As everybody should know, Wareham was the first town to have a harbor management plan back in 1995. We've been working pretty diligently with the harbor master to upgrade the plan. The basic plan is put together. We're just going through and editing, having a draft, and that draft should come before probably, I'd say, fall town meeting, most likely at this point. Included in that plan, which wasn't done way back in 95, was a harbor management council. At that time, there was concern whether or not the Board of Selectmen would or would not accept it, and for some reason they just pulled it rather than bring it forth and let someone make a decision. That particular piece is being worked on. Our concern right now is with the current status of our economic situation in the town, with our budgets and everything else. A harbor management council would have its own enterprise fund, which means it would be taking some income that comes into the town, and it would go into this particular council. At this particular time, that may not be feasible. So we're going to be meeting in the next 2 meetings or so to discuss that particular point. So this may or may not come forward at this particular time again. We've also been requested by the harbor master to do an inland waterway management plan, which I don't think any town that has a marine coastal plan also has an inland waterway plan. This will probably start, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 months. We'll start working on that. It will take us probably, I would say, somewhere between 6 and 9 months to put that together. We have another piece that we're working on. One of our associate members, which is Richard Wheeler, is very much focused on global warming. And there have been studies with different universities about the effects of global warming on coastal communities, how it will affect the actual land mass, everything else, how things may or may not change. So Mr. Wheeler is going to head a basic, not a study, but an actual work paper to come back to the town of what it could look like if we have global warming and how it will affect the actual harbor, waters, etc. And that hopefully will be done over the next year. And that's about what we're doing.
I have some questions. So, Alan, the first, it wasn't earlier than 95 for the harbor
No, the actual
management
plan was filed in 1995.
So, but there it was an ongoing draft then.
Well, in 95 was filed, so obviously it probably started as early as 93. The town also provided, I believe, if you go back in the records, the town either came up with a grant or was appropriated $50,000. There was a firm that actually did most of the work. This time around, we're doing it all ourselves.
So the original one did have a harbor council or authority?
It had a harbor management council in the original document, which was pulled. That piece was pulled out before it came before town.
So the plan that was approved in 1995 did not have that language.
It was pulled.
Right. So that wasn't in the language. So where did the because I remember some time ago looking at the Marine Resources Mission on the website, and then it changed to talk about a harbor authority. So did your committee vote to
It never
pursue
changed.
that? No, it was always the same?
It was always there. The problem was at the time, back in 95, the particular Board of Selectmen at that time were not very favorable about doing much on that particular issue. So the committee that was in place back then, which is way before my time, made a unilateral decision not to bring that forward. It was never changed. It's always been there. It just never came through. The work was done. It was just put to the side.
No, I guess I'm not understanding. So the harbor management plan that was approved, It was
It was approved by the state.
It was approved by the state. So the state approved a harbor management council.
No, the state approved a harbor management plan. The harbor management council, which is part of the whole project, a piece was pulled out, which was the council.
Right.
That would have been approved by the town, not by the state.
Right. So that was never voted on by the town?
No.
So how did it get back in?
It was sitting there all this time. When they came back to redo it again, they just brought it back up again to see if they wanted to move forward with it.
Okay.
It already pre-existed. It had already been done.
But it hadn't been approved by anyone, by the state or by town meeting?
It doesn't get approved by the state. It gets approved by the town.
The town meeting. So the 1995, just to clarify, because I guess I don't want to be talking in circles. In 1995, we have an approved plan, whoever approved it, that does not contain Harbor Management Authority or Council.
Correct.
Is that correct? So now the Marine Resources is looking at.
No.
No.
It had already done it back, and it had it all done in 95. They decided not to go forward with that portion, which would have come before town meeting. They would have had to submit it to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen at that time were not really favorable on it. It didn't get brought forward. It got basically put on hold. And it got put on hold for 15 years.
Okay. So whether it was brought forward or not, wasn't contained, didn't exist. Okay, it existed over here, but here's the harbor management plan that was approved, but you brought this back over here.
I don't understand what you're trying to do. I don't understand what you're asking for.
I'm just asking if the approved management plan, I thought that at one point, and maybe I misunderstood, I thought that what you said was the current harbor management plan, I understand what you're saying, does not contain that language. You believe...
Does not contain that section. That section was
pulled out. Does not contain that
section.
Correct. But you're bringing that section back.
We're taking the section that's been sitting dormant for 15 years and bringing it back and looking at it, and if it does come back, it comes back to the Board of Selectmen for their approval before it would go to town meeting.
Okay.
It's already been in existence. We're not making something new. We're taking exactly what existed 15 years ago.
I understand that, but it wasn't approved.
It was never submitted, so it couldn't be approved.
We're talking in circles.
Why don't we just wait until the commission does, and then we'll...
Thank you.
And you have your meeting on what day, if someone wants to attend again?
We have our meetings on the second Wednesday of every month. It's at 7:30 in the Multi-Service Center.
Any other questions?
Any openings on that?
Right now, we have two associates. I think we have someone that's applied for one of the associates who might have an associate. I'm not positive.
We got one.
I think that
We missed him twice, right?
that particular person cannot get here on Tuesdays. His
That's
work
what I was asking.
his work schedule doesn't. We've asked him. His work schedule is a problem for that. He can make our Wednesday meeting, but he can't make the Tuesday. That's why he hasn't been here.
That's why I asked Janet to follow up.
Yeah, we did speak to him, and we didn't vote per se, but we had no problem as a group.
All right. We'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
You're welcome.
More questions. Thank you.
Next up, we have a discussion with the Friends of the Wareham Free Library Ari Spinney Memorial. Good evening. Remember that you have to get right on top of that thing
Yes,
if you would
okay.
introduce yourselves.
Yes, I was going to do that first. We're all members of the Friends Board. This is Winna Dean, Sandy Bessie, I'm Priscilla Porter. Sitting behind me is Carrie Mello and Deb McGonigal. Oh, I forgot, and Diane Lazarus, I'm sorry. I don't want to leave anybody out. And we've all been members of the building committee for Spinney, and we are also what we're calling the operations committee. We're running Spinney at the moment. I thought I would give a little history about Spinney, how the Friends came to get the building. Back in 2002, the Spinney Memorial Inc. Group, the trustees, approached the Friends. They could no longer afford to maintain the building. Their funding originally came from the Harvest Moon Festivals, Box 5, and when those events stopped, their main source of income was gone with that. They were going to sell the building, but before they put it on the market, they approached the Friends, asked if they would be interested in taking the building and making it into a library, which is something the Onset community has been looking for many years. So in 2005, the building was turned over to the Friends, and they became the legal owners. And at that time, there was a contract drawn up between the Spinney Group, the trustees, the Friends, and the town. The Board of Selectmen all signed the agreement, which would then the building fundraising began to renovate and put an addition on, with the provisions that in the year 2012 it would be brought before a town meeting to be accepted as a branch library, and that's where we're at right now. Part of our plans, I know there have been a number of questions from people. The fundraising for Spinney kicked off in the year 2005. Between that period of time and February of this year, we did a little bit of an accounting. And while we were fundraising and building Spinney, the Friends did give the main library $213,000 in aid for books, materials. We gave $20,000 to the town for salaries. So we have not neglected the main library, which seems to be an issue that keeps coming up. I was a trustee back in 1988. I was there for the groundbreaking of the library. It is my favorite place in the world. Second favorite is Spinney. I'm a library person. Part of going to town meeting with this article, the Friends realized there are budget concerns, and we currently have the funds to cover the startup costs for the building, also cover the 2 years to run the building, the addition to the library budget. So that is part of our plan. We're asking the town to not only take a building that is completely furnished, but we're going to underwrite the startup costs and the first 2 years of operations.
Any questions from the board? Mrs. Russo?
Thank you. I had the opportunity to tour the building. It's beautiful. And while I have not been there on a Monday, I've been meaning to, but I think that what the Spinney's doing for the area is wonderful with the Head Start program, the Girl Scouts. It's a great service to Onset. It's within walking distance for people who may not necessarily have the means by which to get across town to the main library branch. And you guys did a fabulous job with the renovations. It's so warm and welcoming. And thank you, Mrs. Porter, for taking your time to give me that tour.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hi there. I actually do have just a couple of questions. First, I do want to say that the timing of this is financially for the town, as we all know, is a burden. I think that it's great that you're trying to step up and foot the bill for the first 2 years. And I think that there's no one. I'm pretty familiar, as I'm sure you know, with your 990s and stuff like that. The last audit that you had, do you know roughly what your available cash, what your assets were? I mean, does the assets that you do have? See, we have what your plan is, but we don't have anything that says, you know, these are our assets that we have.
I'm the treasurer for the Friends. I can tell you we have the money in the checking account, or we have a Vanguard account that has the bulk of the funds. They're strictly earmarked. We are only using funds that were raised specifically for Spinney to underwrite Spinney. We're not mixing, but we do have the money.
Okay. And I'm not saying that you don't. What I'm saying, though, is I think it would be helpful, particularly, you know, going into town meeting, if there was like a balance sheet or something with part of your packet, so that people could actually see that there is, that you do have funds available. And my other question is, you know, I know that part of the agreement was that a deed restriction would be placed on Spinney. And I see the deed restriction between Spinney.
It's been released.
The deed restriction
part of your
has been?
packet has the quit claim deed.
Okay.
The packets and it was released.
So
it was released prior to any construction.
Okay, so there was a $20,000 contribution from the town, correct, to Spinney?
The town of Wareham, we got CPC funds.
Correct.
Yes, and that was $100,000.
So in total, it was $120,010 roughly.
That was $100,990. We did receive some money from the Spinney Memorial Group.
Okay.
But given directly to the Friends was $100,990.
Okay. Well, here's what my question really is what is the status of the restriction with CPC for the monies used from CPC?
It was for the historical, there is a historical restriction on the deed. In fact, Kopelman and Page, who were the attorneys for the town at the time, did file it, and it's actually for only 35 years. It should have been 99, but somewhere along the line it just didn't happen. But there is a historical restriction, and I believe that is also in the packets that we provided, yes.
Yeah, and this is part of my confusion, because when I read this restriction,
yes,
it's for $20,000, and that's why I'm confused. And
I will have to check that out.
Clarify it.
I know what we received. I'm not quite sure what the $20,000 is.
Okay.
But I will check it out, and I will certainly let you know what I find out.
So the deed restriction was for architectural, historic, and cultural?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just going to call. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Second by? Motion made by Steve, second by?
If you could just clarify that for me.
Yes, I will.
Right up. Hold on. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500. Continue. Any other questions?
No, I think if you could just clarify that, it would be
Yes, and I will.
very
I
helpful.
will get it, and I will get it to you.
Mr. Holmes?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for coming in. I too have been to Spinney. I live in Onset. I have a lot of friends that are hopefully looking forward to that library happening. But the bottom line is, it is what it is. We're in 2012. Mr. Schneider talks about budget issues. You hear the budget issues all the time. So I think that it's good to hear that there's some financing that's coming through the volunteers and the fundraising, the organization, right, to get that, to have that nice head start. So I have a job to do now, is to go out and convince the taxpayers that come to town meeting that this is a worthwhile venture, right?
Yes,
So-
and it is. I know one of the things I probably should have mentioned, there are a number of items, but we do have 3 Head Start classes that come alternating Mondays for story time. Winna and Sandra Wheeler do that. We also have a play group from the Early Education Center at the East Wareham School that meets there one Monday a month. I mean, there are a lot of pluses. I mean, we're running it, but we're volunteers. We're not professionals. We're doing the best we can. But, you know, the people that use it should have full access to the sales system. It would also give the town a municipal building in the Onset community, which it doesn't have now. Other town functions can go there. Groups can meet there. Girl Scouts. You know, they're all very much pluses, not only just for Onset, but I think it benefits the whole town.
Yeah. Thank you. That's my comment.
Mrs. Baker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm an Onset resident. I absolutely adore libraries. Spent my entire life. My mom couldn't find me on a hot summer day. She found me at the library. It was nice and cool in there, and I was surrounded by books, so it was perfect. I've got concerns in this financial climate, and I understand and I appreciate the fact that you guys have a business plan here for 12 hours a week. I have been to so many different committees with this doom and gloom financial climate that the town is facing right now. And I'm concerned about, and we all talk about in our different, these different committees that they kept, you know, the townspeople really have kicked the can down the road. And there's been discussions of overrides, there's been discussions of debt exclusions, and I don't know what's going to happen 2 years down the road. And, you know, your financial timing is, you know, it's not your fault. It is what it is. So I'm not sure how I feel about this. I do appreciate the fact that you've given us so much information to go over. And I did see one 19-hour library assistant, so this would be someone that holds some sort of degrees as a librarian, I'm assuming.
That would be up to the library director. The town takes the building and it becomes a branch. Our library director
Right.
would be the one that would do the staffing.
Right. And right now, are you currently open 12 hours a week?
I think, yeah, it's around that. It might be 11 or 12, I'm not sure. I actually never counted them. We're open Mondays, 10 a.m. to 4, Tuesday evenings, 6 to 8, and Saturday afternoons, noon to 4.
So this business plan, this financial management plan is based on what your current expenses are? Is that correct? And kind of anticipated expenses?
Anticipated, yes.
So when I saw expenses, for example, like a visionware maintenance or the sales, you're not currently involved in either one of those things, so how did you estimate those costs?
These costs were given to us by the library director. She got the cost. This is part of the startup, which is what it will cost for these items.
So are these monthly, are we talking about, so we're saying $165 per year for
No,
admission?
no. The one-time fees, those...
They're one-time fees, but they're not an
Yes.
annual fee.
No, they're not. Well, I mean, there is an annual fee to sales, but this is the one-time cost to put all these things in place.
Okay, so those are the one-time fees, but there's monthly or annual costs to maintain the
There is a
program.
cost to sales. I don't know what that is.
And then supplies, which, can range, and electricity and gas, those are things that so that's how you've currently estimated these?
Yeah, and they're based on the bills that we're getting now.
Okay. No, I'm just, are you going to supply much of this information to the general public, or is this on your website?
I don't know what is on the website, to be honest. But we intend to inform the public with as much information as we possibly can, so everybody understands what we're trying to do, what it costs, what our plans are, and the fact that, we're hoping the town will agree that having full library services in Onset is a good thing.
I understand, and I understand that the dedication that that you've done with this project. Now, I have a couple questions, and it kind of goes with kind of what Mr. Schneider, I think, was saying. Would this money go into like an escrow account?
I believe the plan is at the beginning of the fiscal year, the money would be put into the library gift account, which would then be distributed from there.
So if expenses increased in anything, say, I don't know, for whatever reason, there was a huge increase in expenses, that Friends would still cover that?
We would do our best to make sure to make up the shortfall.
And what would happen if 2 years down the road, we just can't afford it?
It's a town building at that point. That's the town's decision. I mean, I would certainly hope that wouldn't happen, but at that point, once the town accepts it, it's a town building.
Historic town building.
And yes, and there are restrictions. I mean, it can't, it has to be used for historical purposes.
I was at the trustees meeting when they said, well, it can't be a video arcade, and I'm like, well, I hope not.
No, but I mean, there are restrictions on what, under, the restrictions on the deed, what can be done with the building. So, I mean, being an optimist, I would like to think that, the community, the town as a whole would embrace a branch, a full-service branch, especially in difficult times. Usage of libraries when people don't have a lot of money is increased tenfold. I mean, I know I see Saturday afternoon, I see families come in, and they're taking a dozen movies out because they don't have their premium stations anymore. I mean, people use libraries more because the materials are available and it doesn't cost them anything.
And I understand. I absolutely understand. Libraries serve, they're a service, certainly, to the community. It's just hard to anticipate an additional expense. And it's also difficult, and I understand that you're saying that the Friends have donated, I think you said $200 and something thousand to the Wareham Free Library, but to have them, I'm listening to them come to capital planning with some frequency because they're concerned that their windows are going to fall out, or there's no gutters, and I've been there and I've seen the rot around the windows or the skylights failing. So, and I don't mean to mix apples and oranges. I don't.
Yeah, I mean
but I think that these kinds of things need to be addressed.
Well, I'm not debating that issue. I agree that you need to take care of the building, but the building is not something the Friends are responsible for. The purpose of the Friends is to enhance the services, programming. I mean, our Friends group has gone way beyond the norm for Friends groups. When Dick Wheeler did the paddle-thon, he raised $63,000. That's unheard of friends groups. And all of that money, 20,000 of that went to salaries, the balance went to buy books and materials. And I know when times are tough, you try to do what you can, but maintaining the building has never been a purpose of the Friends. I mean, that's the town's responsibility. And you know, we can help in other ways, but we can't do that.
Just one more thing, and I know the hour is late. I understand where you're coming from about maintaining the building and being supportive of services, but you renovated a building in order to have a library branch. So,
yes, and we specifically raised funds to renovate the building and to put an additional on to make it a library and on-site.
But the Friends can't have any kind of fundraising to help with the building here in Wareham?
Well, we've never entertained that. I'm not saying we can't. We just have never done it. Our funds have always gone to, in recent years, because of the shortfall in the library budget, the one part of our donations towards books and materials helps count towards the portion of the book budget that is mandated by the state. So that's where we've focused our attention. That's where our money has gone, because that's critical. Without filling that book budget, we would have problems with waivers. You might not even get one. Having the Spinney as part of the branch and adding those hours actually allows the library to, or the town, to fulfill the 50-hour requirement that they're actually supposed to be open at the library. Right now, I think it's 40 hours. So they need that waiver in order, because the hours aren't what they should be for our population. You know, I would imagine if there's enough response, people could get together and raise some money to do the things that the building needs. But like the library, and I don't mean to say the wrong thing, but there are a number of buildings and things in town that also need repairs and have been neglected simply because the funds aren't there.
Right, but they don't have friends of.
Well, I understand that. But I mean, like I said, our focus has been on books and materials and programs. Actually, I didn't know about the windows till recently.
Thank you very much for giving us the Spinney Library. We've been there a couple of times.
Yes.
In fact, my wife taken out books, and we went to a seminar there, which was very interesting, and it's given Onset uplift, something it needs. And I know after the 2 years are up, it's not going to stop, because your continuation with the library has been great, and we all appreciate it. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Have the Girl Scouts started using it yet?
Actually, they have, and there are two troops that are, I guess it's in the works, a Brownie troop and an older group of girls that are planning to meet there.
Great.
Thank you.
I am.
Is up next week for this, right? Mr. Campina. Mr. Campina. Is this for tonight or next week? You're up. It is on the agenda. That's why I'm asking. I thought you had told me it was the 28th. You're up next.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think it's very quick. It's a, and I don't know if you still have your copies. It's a survey that we're going to send out to the business owners, and it simply is going to say what the waste stream is. And
time out, folks. Listen, please, conversations outside in the hall. Thank you very much. I don't mean to be rude. Go ahead, Mr.
I'm sorry, it's
Campino,
just a
please
survey,
continue.
and we're going to send it to all the commercial businesses in the town of Wareham, and we're trying to identify a waste stream. And once we identify the waste stream from that building, we will identify as part of our pretreatment program if anything needs to be contributed from that business to help us treat before they give it to us with certain criteria, pH and things of that sort, that our bylaws already say that we can't have. We don't know what's going on out there, and we're just trying to get some kind of handle on what we're getting from businesses. It's simple as that.
Yeah. Do you need something from us?
Nope, I just want to, I gave you a copy of what I'm sending out. I just want you to be aware of it, and if there's any questions, I figured I could address it.
Mrs. Winslow, any questions on the...
Nope, thank
Mr.
you.
Schneider? Mrs. Begley? No, Guy,
Just one.
go ahead.
And it's not about this.
Oh,
I was just
well,
going to
that
ask
was-
if Guy could stay up here and finish his sewer stuff. If he
Oh,
had
sure, we
stuff
can
for
do that.
us, Instead
We
of
can do
having.
that. No, he has to go back.
I'm sorry, no, it's easy, it's easy. I just didn't know we could do it. It's fine.
All right, so next up, you have the approval of the fiscal year 2012 second half sewer user billing.
Yes, that's pretty straightforward. We do it every 6 months. And that's what and I think you have the paper, that's what we're sending out. And we need a commitment for John to actually collect that money.
I'll make a motion to approve the FY12 second half sewer usage billing fees in the amount of $2,562,242.74 per
Second.
vote of the
Motion
board.
made by Mrs. Winslow.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Begley. Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0-0.
Thank you. And finally, you have a letter from Mr. McKenzie. He has a piece of property on 7 17th Street in Wewiantic. It's the original property was the corner of Hathaway and Wewiantic. They cut off the house that was facing Hathaway, sold it. It was their father's, I guess the father passed, and they cut that part out. Then they had a remaining land. They went to planning, conservation, and got permission to call it a buildable lot. And so now they have to tie in when they build there. So that we have to give them permission. You folks have to give them permission to actually do that. And so the criteria once they do that is obviously they have to pay a betterment. They have to pay a $1,500 fee to review the plans. They're responsible for the cost of actually tying in because that was one property and they were given their lateral on Hathaway Street. That's been used. That's the town's obligation. They decide to cut the property. They create another property, so they're responsible to pay a sewer development fee, which is in the amount of the last betterment. They're responsible to actually physically tie it in at their cost, the lateral to our sewer system, and there's a fee for us to review the plans to do that, and of course the $200 to actually connect. So it's all on their shoulder. So they're asking permission to do that, and they can only do it with your blessing.
Have you got an account number?
There is no account number
Someone
because
could use, or
He doesn't.
they don't have one. It's a blank piece of land, 7/17 that was created, and so they've been through conservation to get permission, and all the conditions placed by conservation. And one of them is obviously it's in the sewer area, Wewiantic, so they must tie into the sewer
Okay.
to build.
Do you want me to finish this? Could I have a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion.
Using the address.
I'll make a motion to approve the sewer connection for map 59, lot 1029 at 717th Avenue, Wareham, Mass, with a sewer betterment fee in the amount of $15,010.
The most recent from Parkwood, yes.
The most recent sewer betterment from
I have a
contractor.
motion by Mrs. Winslow.
Second for discussion.
Second by Mrs. Begley. For discussion, Mrs. Begley.
Okay. Because this property is going to have another lateral, and they're paying for that, I get it. Do they have to, is this a betterment that's paid over several years, or is this a
No.
development fee?
It's a sewer development
So
fee
they have to
paid
pay-
at one time, one check. They have to pay up front.
So the fees, go over the fees with me again. So it's
It's
$15,000.
$15,000, or I think it's $15,10. I don't have the
Right.
exact figure. The most recent betterment, that's a sewer development fee.
Right.
They pay that.
So that's not a betterment.
No, it's a sewer development fee. And the policy established, I believe it was 2007, I'm sorry, said that when you tie in, we assess a sewer development fee to the most recent betterment. So that's where the betterment comes in, but it's actually a sewer development fee. So they pay that. They also pay $1,500 for us to review the plans. How are they going to tie in? Because we have to make sure that that's going to be appropriate, that they're tying in properly to our system. And so that they pay that up front. And then once that's all done, they take out a permit, they pay $200, they hire a licensed installer within the town of Wareham, and then they put it in. That's the process to get it done.
One question.
Yes.
Hang on one second.
So,
Begley, want to finish?
just want to finish, Mr. Schneider, 1 second. So this property owner knows that this is not a betterment that will be financed over 20 years by the town, and they know that there's a $1,500 site plan or plan review. They know that there's a $200 permit fee, and they know that they're responsible for the cost of the installer, of the installation.
They've been notified, yes.
Because the only thing that this paper talks about is that development fee. Because it says betterment, but it's really not a...
It's not a betterment.
It's a development
It's
fee.
a sewer development fee.
Okay.
It was explained, we sat and we went over the whole thing, all the costs that would be associated with him tying in, even to the point of him paying to have it tied into our system, because there's no lateral for him, so he has to actually come to our system.
So what
he's
do you
aware of that.
estimate the cost of this will be?
The cost would be, it would be the 15,000+, it'd be the $1,500 and $200. That's the cost. Plus his cost, I don't even know. That's going to
Right, that's what I'm saying.
He knows that. That's his cost. Like, I don't get involved in that. It's really none of my business. He goes out and gets a quote from all the different installers. They make a deal and they tie in.
Okay.
I don't even get involved in that. Don't want to get involved in that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Schneider?
Selectman Begley actually asked my question, but I do have one more.
Okay.
And that is, did this lot only become buildable because of the sewer in Weemantic?
I can't say that because when the sewer went in, that was all one lot.
Yeah.
And so there was no need to make it. It was already a house on it. Once the passing of the father, the family decided to split the lot, and so now they actually produced a buildable lot.
Okay.
So because sewer's there, would that have been a difference? Yes, it's wetland and it's close to the river, so I'm sure that it was something to do with it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cupid.
Okay, any questions? On the motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr.
Is that it?
Campina, if I might, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I want to, I was thinking about you this morning. That's a scary thought. I know.
Well, I don't know what this is
but I
about.
just wanted to be clear with you, because I know sometimes we can do this, right?
Right.
Next Tuesday night, do not bring the entire policy book to the meeting.
Hey,
I know, see, I knew it.
I already have it.
I knew it. What we said was to bring like the top 5. Well, it's only a workshop.
I understand.
The top 5 that have been in conflict over the last several months, so we can sit.
But I'm still going to bring the big book.
You know
We'll
what
just
I'm
go over
saying.
the top 5.
You can bring the big. You can bring your big book, but we're not doing the whole book
I
in one
understand.
night. Okay.
I'm going to be very specific. I
We'll
understand.
Take 5 a night when we meet like this or something.
I understand.
You know the ones that you need that have been the most.
The controversy in the last 5 months.
Chairman, I just had to make that comment to him because I knew what he was
And
thinking.
this is your meeting, so bring whatever, and we'll get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Was there anything else where we left off at?
So we're at any other sewer business at this point?
No, the ABCC, the vote on population.
We are finishing it. Any other sewer business, right? While he's still sitting there. I didn't ask if anybody had anything.
No.
No,
We're
just a question on Westfield, but we can talk about that 28th.
And you will have the final numbers. You heard the discussion tonight, right? We'll have that commitment by next Tuesday.
And you already have it. I emailed it to you while I was sitting listening, so you already have it.
Okay. Even better. Mr. Chairman, we're back to the AB. I only had one question before I make this motion, because it says that we did research and all this. Where did the 44,000 come from? And do we know how we came to that number?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Winslow?
I believe I can answer Mr. Holmes's
Thank you.
question. Every year, the town conducts a census, and we also have the most recent census data available from the 2010 census, and the 44,000 is our anticipated summer residency.
All
And
right.
yes, the clerk's office does diligently do this research. Those girls work ladies work very hard to collect all those surveys, censuses back.
I'm comfortable now that I at least asked a question.
Yes, it is actually, because I think I asked it last year, it is actually researched.
All right. Then I'd make a motion that we send this letter to the ABCC, that acting under the authority of Mass General Law 138, Section 17, is amended. The undersigned local licensing authority at a meeting held on February 21st, 2012, estimated that the temporary increased resident population in the town of Wareham as of July 10, 2012, would be 44,000. This estimate was made and voted upon by the undersigned at a meeting called for the purpose, after due notice to each member of a time, place, and purpose of said meeting, and after investigation and ascertainment by us of all the facts, and after cooperative discussion and deliberation. The estimate is true to the best of our knowledge. The local licensing authority makes the above statements under the penalties of perjury.
Second.
Motion made by Steve, second by Kara. Question? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 5-0-0.
So subject to the date change, this will be available for signature after this evening. Actually, Mr. Schneider and I actually signed it a couple of weeks ago. Did you see that in your packet? I don't know what we were thinking that night, Mike. Okay, I'm sorry. Any other town business?
I think, Mr. Chair, you skipped over Board of Sewer Commissioners.
We just did it.
No, that's the ABCC vote on the population for the seasonal licenses.
Okay, so who put Board of Sewer Commissioners on the agenda? I'm sorry. My mistake.
Okay, this was Article 48 that was passed. That was passed at the town meeting in the fall. It's just coming in with the verbiage to be. It has to go back to town meeting again. If we agree on the verbiage that it is now, they have to get voted on and then go back to the whole process again. Yeah, so it'll probably be next spring.
So are you saying, Mr. Chairman, this is a warrant article we have to submit back because of the changes that you made?
The changes they made, we have to agree to it, or make the changes, or make changes if we see fit. Then we'll have to go to town meeting again. And then, that's the way I understand it, and then it'll have to go through the whole.
So this is the recommendation from the Attorney General? Is that?
Right.
Okay.
The changes they made.
Okay.
This is the changes, am I correct? Very top of the page.
Is that what it is? I thought there was another change somewhere
On
else.
Section 1, there's a couple changes, but Section 1 goes over the changes.
What I have to do is put it to the old one. I know there was
Right.
about.
It's amended by striking out Section 3.7.
Right.
And notwithstanding any general or special law, to the contrary, inserting in place thereof the following section. So
does this have to go back to town meeting?
Once we look at it, if there isn't any other changes, then it goes as printed, and then it'll have to go back to be voted on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it goes back where?
To the legislature.
Today? So if we say this is okay, from here it
If we say it's
goes.
okay, then we'll have to bring it to Attorney Bowen, because if we make any changes, it has to go back.
So this is from Attorney Bowen, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Is this significantly different from?
I don't have the old one.
Well, see, unless we have the old one with us.
Can we discuss this? Can we hold this? Yeah, till the next regular meetings.
Okay, yeah, that'll be fine. We
Because
can
I
do it
don't.
till, like,
This
March.
wasn't on the
We can do it on the March
scan.
6th if you want.
We could do it next week.
I didn't see it.
Workshop is already agenda for the sewer.
talk about this next
Oh, yeah,
week.
that's
That
right,
sewer
because it
business.
is sewer
Yeah,
business.
we can do it. I'd like to have some time to read more closely through that. I didn't realize, I thought, I didn't connect the two documents together myself.
Mr.
All right. Any other town business?
Mr. Chair, there were two appointments that were placed in our packet. Assuming this was unforeseen within the 48-hour notice requirement to reappoint registrars. So I would like to make a motion to reappoint Dorothy Taylor of Wareham, Mass. To a registrar for the town of Wareham to expire no later than March 31st, 2014.
Second.
Motion made by Kara, second by Steve. Question? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 500.
And I would also like to, and we do have letters from Mrs. Silva recommending these reappointments, just so the public knows. I'd also like to make a motion to reappoint Francis F. Carmichael of West Wareham to a registrar for the town of Wareham to expire no later than March 31st, 2015.
Second.
Second by Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Motion
second.
made by Kara, second by Mike.
Oh, Mike.
Question? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 500. Okay.
I don't have anything
Okay,
else.
Kara, on your part, I think the library has a question or announcement.
Yeah, I know I was going to make the announcement for him during liaison reports, but if he wants to do it.
Okay, that's what I thought we would.
Well,
No,
did
we're-
anybody
we're
else
there.
have any other town?
Any other town business?
Oh.
Yeah, one moment, please. You gave Mrs. Winslow and Mr. Schneider the opportunity.
Yeah.
I just have a couple things that are pretty important here that we can't drift down the road on much longer. We received an email from Mr. Underhill on February 10th, and this is in regards to the Comcast cable negotiations. And I only bring it up tonight, and we can do this next week or the week after, but we're really cutting it close. And we need to make a decision on whether or not we're going to sit down with these cable companies. This has nothing to do with what we've been talking about with WCTV now. This is directly between the town of Wareham and cable, the cable companies. And either the five of us are going to sit down and negotiate these agreements, or we're going to appoint a committee. And we need to get this done because Comcast, you have to do it 3 years prior to the expiration, and the town needs to start negotiations to renew Comcast, and that date's April 1st. And we're sitting here at February, whatever today is, 21, 22. You get my point. Next week we have a workshop, so our next meeting isn't until March 6th. Not much time. So that's why I bring it up, Mr. Chairman, under other business, that I think the board needs to make a decision here.
I think to form a committee would be ideal for right
Well,
now.
then I would want to have a motion tonight to do that. Then I'll make a motion that we form a cable advisory committee consisting of, at a minimum, Mr. Underhill, who is our IT systems manager, one member of the Board of Selectmen, and keep it an odd number, 3 at large. 3 members at large to form this committee and negotiate their contract.
Second.
For discussion?
Motion
Mr.
made by
Schneider.
Steve, second by Mike. Question?
Did you say this has to be, the negotiations have to begin by April 1st?
Well, I don't know. He's not clear on that. He says the date is April 1st.
Okay, well, can we get 3 at-large members appointed by then?
Well, through you, Mr. Chairman, if Mrs. Winslow's asking me, that's one of the reasons why this is I actually took a motion. It's not quite on the agenda, but it's urgent matter, so that once this board votes, I can make the announcement right now on the scheduling of applications tonight.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, in light of that decision by the board, I'd like to make an announcement that the Board of Selectmen, and if there are news organizations here, this is actually a matter of urgency, that the Board of Selectmen is requesting and seeking 3 members of the public to participate on the Wareham Cable Advisory Committee. And this committee will be involved with negotiations and making recommendations back to the Board of Selectmen between the town of Wareham and cable companies. So we would hope that people that step forward to volunteer for this have some kind of a background with cable, or not just a TV viewer, but someone who has knowledge of the cable industry or anything like that. So, contract management, any of those types of skills. And hopefully, if we can get as many applicants as we can by March 6th, the board will entertain interviews on March the 6th if we have any candidates in the office. And Mr. Underhill, don't schedule any vacation time in the month of March. Thank you very much.
Any other town business? Hearing none?
Oh, yes. One other piece that's also very important for the Board of Selectmen. I only bring this up again because it dawned on me this morning. I sent a note to Mr. Cruz, who's the chairman, and I sent another note, the same note, to Mr. Andrews, that, as February is coming to a close, as a board, we need to make sure that we appoint town council during the month of March, as per the charter. So, last year we did a posting, we had interviews, which was executive session. I believe there were executive session meetings.
No, they were not.
They might have been in the open. We did the interviews. I don't remember now. But the board needs to kind of make a decision, because today, again, today's the 21st, and if you're going to post something, you need a couple of weeks to do that, to get responses and have the interviews, and we need to make this appointment before the end of March, so we don't have much time.
What's the date you want to set to have the posting?
March, I'm looking at the calendar. Our last meeting in March is on the 27th, so you've got about, 4 weeks?
Anybody want to make a motion?
It's not on the agenda.
No, it's not on the agenda, but it's urgent action that's required if we don't get moving on this.
Well, it's any other town business, and we already voted on
I'm not asking to appoint town
WCTV.
council, just the process. We need to, if we don't do something today, it's not going to get done.
Well, Mr. Chair, the charter does have a requirement in it that that we send the whatever it is you want to call it, the quote
RFQ.
or RFQ or whatever you want to call it, to local attorneys who are supposed to obviously be preferential. However, in this particular case, I would prefer, since we only had 3 applicants last time and they all came to us with a flat fee, I personally would like the board to have a wider audience, obviously maintaining the requirement in the charter, but I'd like to get this out to a broader audience throughout the Commonwealth, because in the end, we did pay a flat fee. I haven't gone through and added up the hours, but I think the board needs to.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I think Mrs. Winslow is having discussions that's not my intentions. We're not discussing. All I want to know from the board is, because we have a timeline, are we posting this thing? And if so, we need to give the direction to the town administrator to do that this evening. Any other discussion is not relevant and not part of this.
Okay, I'm going to consider that a
So I don't want to
motion.
talk about past, what,
Well, but you have to figure out how you're going to post it, is what I'm trying to say. You can't.
posting the position of town council in the town of Wareham at this point.
Okay, motion made by Steve. Is there a second? I haven't posted.
How is it being posted?
Well, what was it posted last year?
But that's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chairman.
We can't have this discussion.
No, and frankly, I'm uncomfortable discussing it, and I'm uncomfortable taking a
What would you
motion.
bring it back on March the 6th?
I would say March the 6th, put it on for an agenda item, and then we can discuss it.
Right.
And then you don't have time to post it.
Well, we're going
Well-
have to...
Well, we'll have time. We'll post
Okay,
it.
all right, that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up. And my last piece, which is probably the most important piece, is that between the five of us here, we have to have our appreciation dinner for the volunteers. I know. So this is an important agenda item. File a complaint against me if you want. This is the most important. I did last year. I cooked, and if you'd like me to do that, I'd be more than happy to do that again. But we haven't picked a date. We haven't. So, you want me to coordinate it? I'll be happy to do that.
Sound like
Just
a
tell
winner
me.
to me. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll take care of it. But Mrs. Ekstrom started that. I don't know, 3 years ago? I think it was.
It's been a while.
And we had a great time again last year, and we'll do it. Okay.
Now, is that it, Mr. Holmes?
I'm thinking so.
Okay, liaison.
Mr. Chair.
Are you going to announce it, or do you want to?
No, I'll do it. Mr. Chair, three quick things. The Board of Library Trustees has 2 openings. Did these just happen outside in the hall, or? Oh.
What? It happened in the hall.
I don't know.
I didn't hear what she said. That's funny.
No. Excuse me. Mike Flaherty, Chairman of the Wareham Library Board of Trustees. We have one member who is not going to fulfill he's not going to get reappointed in June. That's Jack Hooten. His term ends, and he's not going to re-up. And he wanted me to make this announcement as early as possible to get more people interested so we avoid what we had last time.
It's not pertinent. He's going to stay through June?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's still on, and he'll be there until June. And as you know, I'm running for school committee, and if I'm elected, I'm going to probably finish April. So I probably won't be. If I get elected, I won't be re-upping in June myself, and my term is up in June.
Okay, so that's it.
That's it. So there's definitely one opening, and there might be 2.
Mr. Chair, quickly, the Capital Planning Committee has been meeting sometimes weekly, at least every other week, as they go through the process of developing the capital plan. I encourage the public to attend the meetings. This is your infrastructure. We talk about the windows in the library. This is what the Capital Planning Committee is here to do. They've inventoried everything. These are big ticket items. You should be part of the process. That's what these open meetings are for, and you're welcome to attend them. They are posted. The times change on them, so you do have to watch. But the next meeting is actually on Wednesday, the 22nd of February at 1 o'clock in the Town Hall cafeteria. And finally, it came to my attention, and I don't know why it didn't dawn on me sooner, but the last Board of Health liaison to the Recycling Committee was Mr. Campina. And there are some issues going on where these 2 committees really do need to be more involved, especially with the we have an ordinance about recycling for haulers and some other stuff, which I'm not going to take up everybody's time and go through it, but it would be nice if we could ask the Board of Health to kindly appoint a new liaison that would attend. They only meet once a month, and their meetings are literally like 45 minutes long. I've also recommended to the recycling committee that they themselves appoint a liaison to attend the Board of Health meetings to establish that line of communication again, and that's it.
I think all my liaison reports already happened, Mr. Cruz.
Thank you. As the chairman of the announcement committee, I just found this announcement in the yellow folder. The Oak Grove Spring Fling Dinner Dance, sponsored by the Oak Grove Cape Verdean Cultural Center. Tiny would kill me if I didn't read this. It's going to be happening on March the 2nd, 2012, from 8 to 12 at the Onset Dudley L. Brown VFW. Tickets are $10 apiece. Enjoy a full dinner buffet with American and Cape Verdean specialties. A buffet for $10. Bring your dancing shoes and dance to the hot step and music of well-known Don Don Gomes, who presents with a mixture of American hits as well as old-time Cape Verdean music. There'll be raffles, grab bag auctions and things, so spring into fling and come to the VFW March 2nd, 8 p.m. for the time of your life. I think that does it. Yeah, I had to say that.
Okay, I need a
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn by Kara, second by Ellen. All in favor? All opposed? 500.